Welcome to the City Council's April 21st City Council meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with all City Council, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce staff and the City Council members present. Vice Mayor Drew Combs, City Council Member Kat Carlton, City Council Member Betsy Nash, City Council Member Ray Mueller. Staff present include City Manager Starla Jerome Robinson, Interim City Attorney Cara Silver, and City Clerk Judy Herron. Ms. Herron, would you please provide instruction to the City Council and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor, and welcome everyone. For those of you who are members of the public and attending this meeting, on your screen, you should see a little hand. That's the hand you will use for public comment. The mayor will introduce the item, staff will make a presentation, and then the mayor will call for public comment. And it's at this time we'll have the opportunity to open up your microphones, and you'll have 3 minutes of public comment. You can also use the question mark feature in order to type your public comment that can then be read out loud to the City Council. So again, if you are a member of the public and wish to speak on one of the items, at the proper time, the mayor will call for public comment. Again, you'll use that green hand, which should be on your screen next to your name. And I'll be able to open up your mic and you'll have your 3-minute public comment period. Again, the City Council will remain on screen for the duration of the meeting, and staff will come on screen and engage their microphones for the staff presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herron. Next on the agenda is public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the City Council on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the City Council once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The City Council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the City Council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Ms. Herron, do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yes, we do have 3 public comments that were received via web form. So for those of us just joining, if you are a member of the public and wish to speak on public comment, please use that green hand feature and we'll be able to call on you. I'm just taking a peek to see if any of our received public comments via web form are here live and would prefer that. Seeing none, I will display the public comment and read it for the 3-minute time period. So if I do speak swiftly, it's because I want to capture everything that was typed in. So beginning with our first public comment. Hopefully everybody can see this. It is from Nate Gardner. And the public comment is, how about closing Santa Cruz Ave to cars and let the restaurants expand further into the street? This action will enable appropriate social distancing, yet allow more customers to be served a local stimulus. Please consider the following SVBC recommendations. Publicize a reduced speed advisory to 15 miles per hour for residential streets to keep everyone walking and biking safe. More people are walking and biking to their neighborhoods to get exercise and travel to essential services nearby. Concurrently, with less car traffic, people are speeding down roads, especially Santa Cruz Ave, endangering those walking and biking. And an additional letter A, an additional step would be to adjust signal timing to slow vehicle speeds and ensure safety, particularly on long corridors like El Camino Real, Alameda de las Pogas, etc. Number 2, more space for the increased number of people walking and biking. Our biking and walking networks are insufficient to meet the needs of people getting exercise and traveling while maintaining 6 feet of social distance. We recommend identifying streets where bikeways and sidewalks could be expanded, creating quick build or pilot bikeways and sidewalks on streets that have excess vehicle lanes. Number 3, switch the pedestrian phase of traffic signals to be automatic and ensure that bicycles are captured at traffic signals. Adjusting pedestrian signals so pushing a button is no longer needed to cross the streets limits the amount of surfaces a person must touch, helping curb the spread of COVID-19. And the next public comment should be on our screen. Just want to ensure Lynn is not in attendance. She is not. I will go ahead and read the public comment. Dear City Council, will you add a standing agenda spot for a report from the Emergency Operations Center that provides specifics related to what the EOC is doing week by week. The initial presentation to Council of the EQC's composition and the roles of the individuals within the EOC was extremely high level. Instead, I would like to see a standing update that went into more specifics, rotated across the members of the EOC. This doesn't have to require a lengthy staff report. For example, Rebecca Lucky was designated to the liaison of the schools and nonprofits. On a weekly basis, I would like to know what she has done related to the COVID-19 and the schools and nonprofits. In a similar way, I would like to hear from each member. Sorry about that, my screen just gave up on me. In a similar way, I would like to hear from each member. I would also like to hear the EOC's plans for phase 2 and beyond of the COVID-19 gradual release of the shelter-in-place order. In other words, what are the EOC's plans for testing, tracing, mental health support, and equitable distribution of supplies that might come from the county and/or FEMA. I also suggest getting updates as to creative ways of support. For example, the city's library has a seed bank that I only learned about via in Menlo publication. I've also learned that table napkins make great masks for the no-sew method. Some of our residents may need masks, and some of us may have extra 100% cotton table napkins, not used or barely used, but certainly clean, that could be donated. I don't think that the general public has yet realized how well a table napkin can function as a mask. And then our final public comment is coming from Carmen O'Shea. COVID-19 has created an environment of fear, social isolation, and an unexpected impact on our mental health, even more so for the vulnerable members of the community. On behalf of the LGBTQ Commission of San Mateo County, I'm writing to ask for your support of the LGBTQ community in Menlo Park during Pride Month, June 2020. The support that we ask for and the suggestions we provide to you are intended to visibly demonstrate our city's support for our LGBTQ residents. This visibility and support allow Menlo Park LGBTQ residents to know that they are seen and that they matter. During this time of social distancing, these simple acts of visibly create a deeper sense of connection and inclusion for everyone in the community. We recommend the following options to support the LGBTQ residents of Menlo Park during Pride Month. Number 1, raise the LGBTQ rainbow flag for the month of June. Raising the LGBTQ flag highlights to our residents that Menlo Park is a leader in the fight for equal rights and that we will continue to protect and expand the rights for everyone in Menlo Park. Number 2, Pride Month Proclamation. Another key step your city can take to support LGBTQ residents is to issue a proclamation to declare in June 2020 as Pride Month for Menlo Park. I will be happy to supply a template proclamation that other cities in our county have used and will use. Number 3, San Mateo County Pride Celebration. We also invite you to join us for the 8th annual San Mateo County Pride Celebration, now a virtual event to be held Saturday, June 13th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. I can provide additional details as desired. Number 4, rainbow flag symbol on your city website. I can send image examples as desired. Number 5, a short history of Pride posted on your website. I can send sample verbiage as described. I would welcome an opportunity to follow up on any or all of these items. I also sent an email with this and other information, detailed information to Judy Heron, Starla Jerome Robinson, and the City of Menlo Park City Council members on Friday, April 17th. Thank you in advance for your consideration and support of our LGBTQ community. Best, Carmen O'Shea, Menlo Park Resident Commissioner and San Mateo County LGBTQ Commissioner. this time, I believe that was our last public comment under public comment. I'm going just to double check our attendees in queue. And it does look like Jen Woolison has her hand up. Jen, bear with me 1 sec. I will open that mic in just a moment. Okay. Jen, I've engaged your microphone, and when you're ready.
Great, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, City Council members. Thank you for your continued service during these difficult times. I also want to let you know I had an opportunity to listen to the town hall that took place, I believe it was last Friday, and it was an excellent event. And I really appreciate both our mayor and our city managers' patience and thoroughness in going through many of our residents' concerns. Two people on that call brought up safe streets, and I know there have been other emails sent into CCIN as well as a public comment this evening. And I just wanted to make sure you had information on what some of the neighboring cities are doing with this regard. San Mateo has been discussing it, and they are looking to put up more signage and look at some streets to make safer for pedestrians to social distance. Redwood City is also discussing a network of shared or slow streets. Redwood City as well and San Jose are also looking at these items. And I realize that there are limited resources and now may or may not be the time for Menlo Park. I just wanted to make sure that you had information out there about what other communities near to us are doing. And it might be something to consider as this stay at home and social distancing lasts longer and longer, the need for people really to be able to get out. So it's just something for you to consider agendizing in the future. And we'll continue to pay attention to what's going on in the streets. And I thank you again for your service. And have a good night. Thanks.
And that does conclude the public comment we have received for the item of public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Herron. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Under the consent calendar, the City Council may take action to approve routine business items in one motion unless a City Council member or city staff member or member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. Councilmember Carlton? You're on mute.
Excuse me, sorry about that. I would like to pull, please, D1, D4, and D6.
And Mayor Taylor, we do have a public comment on D3 that was submitted via web form.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Herron. Were there any other items on the consent calendar that any council member had any questions or concerns about? I have a question on D8.
Mayor
So that
Taylor, may I
leaves,
oh, my apologies, continue.
oh, cool. Go ahead.
And just if we want to do the public comment for D3 and then do a motion to pass the other items and then bring the pulled items for discussion, we can do that. Or if the pulled
Yes.
items are more comments. Okay, so what we'll do is I will call for public comment on the consent calendar. And I do see James Pistorino. He had submitted a web comment, but him being here, I'll give him the opportunity to have his 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So James, I've unmuted your microphone. Did you want to make a public comment verbally, or would you like me to read your web form public comment?
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but if you can hear me, it might be better just to go ahead and read it.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good, thanks.
So go ahead and we'll give you your 3 minutes and you can share your public comment with the City Council. James, are you still there?
Yeah, okay, I thought you were gonna,
Oh, yeah.
apologize, I thought you were gonna read it. I'll go ahead and read it.
Okay.
Just as I indicated in the thing, I'm commenting to express my opposition to and fiscal concern with the proposed state safe storage of firearms ordinance. I'm an attorney of more than 20 years specializing in federal court litigation and a Menlo Park resident of nearly 20 years. While I do not question the motives of those who advocate for such an ordinance, I do question its constitutionality and whether adopting the ordinance is fiscally wise at a time when the city is facing much more pressing financial issues. As an initial matter, it does not appear that the council has been properly advised by the city attorney. As amended, the proposed ordinance makes it illegal to have a firearm in the home unless it is locked in a pre-approved safe or disabled with pre-approved trigger lock or carried on the person. Thus, the proposed ordinance would preclude the common situation of a firearm stored in a nightstand ready for defense of the home if necessary. As a practical matter, the proposed ordinance precludes keeping a firearm in the home for self-defense unless carried on the person or in a condition that precludes self-defense. A trigger lock requirement of exactly the kind presented by the proposed ordinance was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in Heller versus District of Columbia. Simply put, pursuant to the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, the right of the people both to keep and bear arms may not be infringed. Clearly, the proposed ordinance infringes with the right to keep arms, whether by requiring a trigger lock or safe. While I understand that some have strong feelings about firearms, that does not change the constitutional rights of the others. There's no answer to say that the ordinance has been watered down from the initially proposed 1 year in jail and $1,000 fine to the fines of the proposed amended ordinance. Any infringement on the Second Amendment right is unacceptable or unconstitutional. Likewise, a mere fine for speaking ill of a city council that would consider such an ordinance in violation of the First Amendment freedoms of expression and the right to petition would be unacceptable / unconstitutional. On the public record, the council has not been advised by the city attorney of these defects. If that is the case, I strongly encourage the council to seek other representation in this regard. Beyond its unconstitutionality, I note that the staff report indicates that the proposed ordinance is not expected to result in significant additional resources. Nothing could be further from the truth. Should the ordinance pass, the council should expect concerned residents to promptly file suit in federal court to vindicate their constitutional rights. To be clear, if passed, any concerned resident may file suit even before any effort is made at enforcement and even before the ordinance goes into effect. In that litigation, in addition to bearing its own attorney's fees, the city may be liable for the attorney's fees of the plaintiffs. Typically, attorneys engaged in litigation of this kind, such as myself, charge well more than $500 an hour, and the litigation of this kind would, at a minimum, cost several $100,000, if not well into 7 figures. I am not aware that the council is so flush with resources, that the city is so flush with resources that sums of this kind are not considered significant. Further, I note that at the March 10th City Council meeting, it was offered that the proposed ordinance was, quote, educational. From a sheer money perspective, this seems to be a very expensive exercise in virtue signaling. As described in the staff report, the proposed ordinance is in response to an initiative from San Mateo County. If so, I suggest that San Mateo County or some other city within the county pass the proposed legislation rather than Menlo Park. I see no reason why Menlo Park and its residents should bear the burden of this misguided approach. Finally, I cannot but help remark on the irony of Menlo Park attempting to restrict the keeping of firearms, while Lexington and Concord drives are streets approximately 1 mile from the council chambers. Is the council completely ignorant of where these names come from? Given the discussion at the March 10th council meeting, sadly, it appears so. To be clear, If the proposed ordinance is passed, the city will be sued. That's all I have.
Thank you for your public comment. Ms. Herron, do we have any other public comment on the consent calendar?
I do not see any hands raised. Let me just make sure we've received no others via web form. Showing none on the consent calendar.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the other items on the consent calendar that are not up for discussion? Councilmember Carlton?
I have a question about something brought up on the ordinance with the firearms for our city attorney. Is it appropriate to ask that now?
No, we never, I mean, we got something.
Car, are you able to answer a question from Councilmember
Yes.
Carlton? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I was told that this had already been passed in the county and a number of cities throughout California. And as the speaker pointed out, this is a weaker version of. Can you please confirm if this has been passed in the county and the different places where it has been passed, and if we have precedent of this holding up in court?
Yes, that is correct. The first city in this region to pass it was San Francisco. Since then, the county of San Mateo has passed the ordinance. As the speaker said, a stronger version actually of this ordinance. And then there have been a couple of cities in San Mateo County who have also passed a trigger lock ordinance.
Thank you. And has this held up in court?
It has held up in court.
Okay. So there is precedence for passing this.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted clarification on that.
Councilmember Mueller?
Actually, with respect to the firearm item, I'd like to pull it and discuss it in closed session.
Ms. Silver, I'm asking you because you're still on screen. So even though we went through the first part of the ordinance, we could still pull it and have further discussion?
Yes, we can. What I would suggest, though, if you do want to discuss it in closed session, that we come back with the closed session, agendize that separately, and then we would agendize the second reading on that same meeting, rather than having the closed session this evening or in the middle of the item.
That's fine with me. We've been threatened with litigation tonight by a plaintiff. I'd like to talk about it with the city attorney in a closed session.
Vice Mayor Combs?
Yeah, I'll just, Simon, I would support the effort to discuss this again in closed session. I would only add that this, since I propose it, this ordinance exists at the state level, but the only difference is that if a child is a member of the household. And so to me, if it's an infringement of your Second Amendment rights, then that state ordinance, or the state law, is also an infringement. And that if you were going to engage in sort of suing to make the point that this requirement of a safe storage for guns was an infringement, it would seem like that would be a much bigger fish in this effort than at this level. Because again, the substance of the complaint was that to have a gun storage lock ordinance was an infringement of the Second Amendment. And such ordinance exists at the state level. But that being said, I would support if there needs to be discussion. I don't see how that discussion would actually provide much clarity on the exposure of the city with regards to a lawsuit. But if that makes my colleagues feel more comfortable, then again, I don't think it's a pressing issue in the sense that we can't hold this off and discuss this later.
Councilmember Mueller?
Yeah, candidly, I just want to be able to have a conversation with the city attorney about the topic without asking the questions in front of a potential plaintiff.
So I have a procedural question. Do we need to vote or make a motion to have it removed so we can discuss it in closed session to pull it off the consent calendar?
Yes, you should take a motion on that. And I assume that Councilmember Mueller is making that motion.
Yeah, I mean, my motion is just that we agendize it for a closed session and continue the item.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to remove item D3 regarding ordinance number 1067, motion by Councilmember Mueller, seconded by Councilmember Carlton. And we are continuing this item to a closed session by a roll call vote. Councilmember Carlton, please.
Aye.
Councilmember Mueller. Councilmember
Aye.
Nash.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Combs.
Yes.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. So then I believe that the second motion would be to approve the consent calendar without items D1, D3, D4, D6, and D8. Does that capture all of the items pulled?
And I would like to change pulling D8 off. We can include it in the
Okay.
first section.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then the motion would be to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items D1, D4, D3, and D6. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve D2, D5, and D7.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by City Council Member Nash, second by City Council Member Carlton. Carlton, your vote. Thank you.
Aye.
Council Member Mueller.
Yes.
Council Member Nash.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Combs.
Yes.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Councilmember Carlton, you pulled D1.
Yeah, first I'd like to just talk about D4 on the street. When I spoke to our city manager, she said that not every street on the list can be done because of time and money and all the obvious things. But there's one I've received a number of complaints from residents and wanted to make sure it's added. And I know it might not get done, but it's nice to have it on the list because then it might get done and people feel heard. And that's a street called Trinity. And the only problem is between Trinity Court and Tioga along Trinity. And was just asking if we could please add that to the list. You know, knowing that it may or may not actually get done, but it makes everyone feel better to know that it's recognized as an issue and added to the list. So I guess to move it along, I can do a motion if you want that we pass it with the addition of Trinity between Trinity Court and Tioga. Hi, Chris.
Hi. Chris Lamb, Assistant Public Works Director. So I just want to make clear, so the project that we're going to be moving forward with this summer is a slurry seal project. So that's typically done on streets that are in relatively good condition in order to keep them in good condition. So if this section of Trinity is in particularly bad shape, then a slurry seal wouldn't be the right treatment for it. But I know we have a couple of outstanding streets from last year's resurfacing project, and I know Trinity is one of those where we encountered some utility issues and had to postpone that work over the winter. So I can go back and verify if this is in fact that same stretch that we were intending to do at the end of last summer. And even if it's not, we can definitely make sure it's on a list so that it's in our minds when we have the right type of project to address it.
Okay, it is, the street is buckling, and it looks like it's buckling due to a tree root that is causing the road to come up.
It may be the same stretch that we were intending to do last year. Like I said, we encountered some utilities that were also in conflict with tree roots, and so we couldn't. We ran out of time in the year to take care of it.
Okay, you're right. If this would require more than a slurry seal. So if this is a slurry seal issue, then it should not be added. So I would move approval of it without this part of Trinity, but knowing that it's on your radar.
Understood.
So I'll move approval of D4.
I have a follow-up question, Mr. Lamb. Just looking at the 43 streets that are on here, is this a list based on the need? So 1 being the most important, 43 being the least important, or is this just a list of everything?
I believe that list is alphabetical, so it's just the list of all the streets.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, if we could just go through the ones that you pulled, Councilmember Carlton, and then we can approve them all at once.
No problem. D6 on the TOT waiver. While I'm painfully aware of the restraints on the city financially and our need for TOT, I've spoken to a couple of the owners and managers of hotels in Menlo Park who are desperately struggling to keep their employees and to weather this what we hope is a terrible blip, and until people come back into our hotels. And they feel like they are deeply appreciative of putting the TOT payment off to the end of July, but they don't feel that in June people are going to be they're not going to be herds of people coming to stay in the hotels in June, that it really doesn't make that much a difference. They felt what would be really genuine aid to them would be is if we put this until September, so that they had some time over the summer to have people start coming back, start bringing in money, and then be able to pay the TOT. So the request is if we could put that from the end of July to the end of September, the end result might be that more people are able to keep their jobs locally at our hotels, and our hotels can keep functioning. So I was going to put that forward as a request on behalf of some of our business owners.
Thank you, Councilmember Carlton. Is Mr. Jacobson here? If there could be some follow-up to Councilmember Carlton's.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Dan Jacobson, Assistant Administrative Services Director. There's not really a problem with deferring it even longer if the council so desires. The penalties can be waived as long as the council desires to do so. It will necessitate a few accounting tricks, as that time period would cross over the city's fiscal year, but that's not an insurmountable problem.
None of the people I spoke to felt that they couldn't pay it, but they felt it was a cash flow issue that would be aided by us being able to do this. And they had full intention of paying it in September, but would appreciate the ability to have that cash to make the necessary payments on people's salaries.
And absolutely, that's why we intended to bring this before you so that you could give that direction, understanding the cash flow concerns for them, which are not as big a concern from the cash position of the city.
Oh, they're both important.
Are there any follow-up questions for Mr. Jacobson? Are there any other concerns that other council members had? Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. And the next item was, well, we skipped D1. Do you want to?
Yeah, the
bring up
minute.
D1?
Usually I when we have things, we bring it up and then we have kind of edited ones in front of us on the dais, and it's harder when we're doing virtual. On F3, when we talked about the electric vehicles, I was just going to add, just to make sure that it's captured on the minutes, that we also discussed new electric trucks coming onto the markets and new vehicles that should be considered for purchase. We had a conversation about that. It sounds kind of uptight to document these things, but it is important to document them so when we look back on them, we remember what was said.
Councilmember Carlton, what meeting date was this item F3 on?
F3, hold on, I'm just trying to find on my own.
Okay. Or if you can reference a page number of the packet.
Date it is page number D1.9, I believe.
Perfect, that'll work. We'll be able to reference that. If I have further questions, I can reach out to you offline.
Great, thank you. And I followed up with Rebecca on that too. So I mean, it's not they have that information. And the other one was on the same page on the very first paragraph, talking about the city council discussed their desire to expedite the program amendments as presented and ask that the staff bring back the additional recommendations from Grove. They weren't from Grove, they were the staff recommendations. So I was just going to say that the from Grove, which is already in quotes for some reason, be deleted, and just say that the staff bring back the additional recommendations at a meeting in the near future.
We can make that change as well.
Okay. And that's all I had to add. Everything else looks great.
Ms. Herron, I had a correction on that same page. Well, actually, it's D10. It's set from March 26th. It says that Mayor Taylor reported out on San Mateo County Board of Supervisors meeting. I believe it was the Strategic Planning Committee. I don't think it was the supervisors meeting.
Okay, I probably will go back and just verify that with video to make sure it was
okay.
There was no board meeting or spoken about, but I'll definitely add the strategic planning meeting. Thank you.
So
and,
with all those,
Councilmember Carlton, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
So it's item D1, D4, and D6. And do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Nash.
Thank you. So motion on the floor to approve items D1, D4, and D6. Motion by Councilmember Carlton, second by Councilmember Nash. Roll call vote. Councilmember Carlton. Thank you. Councilmember Mueller. Councilmember Nash.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Combs.
Yes.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is regular business. Under regular business, the City Council considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require City Council approval. The first item on the agenda is E1, confirmation of next steps on the Belhaven Community Center and Library project. To introduce this item is Deputy City Manager Justin Murphy. And I believe for clarification that we're bifurcating this item and doing part of it now so that Vice Mayor Combs can be present and doing the remaining towards the end of the meeting.
Yes, Mayor Taylor, that is my understanding as well. I think the one thing that we may need to talk through at the appropriate time is public comment, whether you'd like to have one set of public comment or two sets of public comment. But otherwise, okay, looks like I'm going to be sharing this time. So just 1 second. Okay, let's see. Okay, so is my screen now visible? So if someone could let me know if my screen is visible.
So we can see it.
Okay, great, because I can't see you, so great. So yes, so tonight's item is regarding the new community center and library. And so I'm gonna give a presentation. Oops, sorry. Not sure what happened there. Okay, and I'm gonna break it into two parts. So I will talk about interim services, stop, and then I'll talk about the project itself. So we would maybe typically go the other way, but to maximize participation, we're going to do it in this order. So just to kind of recap some recent meetings going back to the last council meeting, that was a full-fledged regular business item related to the project. Goes back to February 25th. Where the council provided direction on the interim services. And then March 10th, there was a consent calendar item regarding a resolution of intent to abandon some right-of-way and utility easements. Then on April 7th, so that was the first meeting after the shelter-in-place orders, state of local emergency. City Council held an agenda item where it talked about overall priorities, and as part of that, the council did vote to reaffirm that this project was a high priority for the city. So then on last week's agenda, there was an information item just to kind of as a preview of tonight's council meeting and to explain the postponement of a planning commission study session that was originally scheduled for March 23rd. The planning commission did hold its meeting, but this particular agenda topic was postponed. And then we have had a series of city council subcommittee meetings over the past few weeks. So the first part of this agenda topic is going to be about interim services. And one thing that was a discussion previously had to do with time frame. And we are now at the point where we're focusing on having interim services in place at the beginning of January 2021. So there was different discussions previously about maybe sometime in the fall of 2020. We're now looking to have them in place by the end of 2020 so that they are ready to be used by the beginning of January 2021. So then the next topic and the next couple topics are specific to the types of services that are we're looking to provide as an interim measure. So one is senior services. And so what we're doing in the staff report and tonight is letting the council and the community know what we're intending to do to then be able to embark on some pretty focused outreach regarding this, and then be able to kind of come back to the council at a later date for final approval. So as it relates to senior services, we're looking to locate the service on an interim basis at the Arriaga Family Recreation Center. So this would, sorry, I just clicked on one thing and lost the rest. 1 second. Okay, just a second. There we go. Arriaga Family Recreation Center. Advance the slide. Let's see. So use the existing recreation center with focus with certain rooms. So certain rooms would have, sorry, there's some feedback. Reduced access certain days of the week while the senior program's in place. There's an existing kitchen at the recreation center. We think there may need to be some minor modifications to meet the needs. A big component would be increased transportation offerings for Menlo Park seniors to go to the Burgess campus. And there's potential for site constraints, and that would most likely happen in the summer of 2021 and maybe the summer of 22 when there's summer camps being offered. So the next category is recreation classes. So similarly, also locating those at the Burgess campus. As part of this, the city staff would look into modifying the fee structure. So this has been something that's been discussed at previous council meetings generally, but we would come back with something specific to make sure that programs are accessible to all Menlo Park residents, regardless of their ability to pay. Again, similar to the senior services, increased transportation options, as the mayor referred to previously, as an activity shuttle. And then as part of this, there may be some existing spaces in the gymnastics center or the main library that could be reconfigured to accommodate some meeting spaces or potential classrooms. And then the third major component for interim services is the youth center, the after-school childcare. And so staff is in discussions with Beechwood School about exploring a potential partnership to locate that service on the Beechwood campus. So those are the various components of the plan that we're looking to pursue, and for tonight we would like to get confirmation from the council that we should be proceeding with further exploring these in more detail. As I said previously, we would conduct outreach, focused outreach on the particular user groups, and then return to the city council for final approval of these interim services. So that concludes the presentation regarding interim services. The rest of the presentation is regarding the project itself. So with that, I will pause and turn that back to the mayor, and then working with the city clerk if you want to potentially field public comment on interim services, then the council can discuss that, and then we can start up again on the project review.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for the presentation. Ms. Herron, do we have public comment that's separated by Interim Services, or Ms. Silver, you're on.
Yes, so you have two options. What you can do is you can hear the whole presentation and hear all of the public comment and then just bifurcate the council discussion, or you can have a separate discussion on interim services and a separate discussion with separate public comment on the project itself. You know, whichever way you want to handle it is fine from a legal perspective.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silver. Ms. Herron, how many public comments do we have?
So at this time, I've received one public comment via the web form. I'm trying to take a peek at it now to see if it applies more to interim services. It might be more general. Looking at our attendees, I see no raised hands as of now. Might want to give it maybe, now we do. I've got at least one live public comment and one web form comment. Again, it might be difficult to separate the public comments based on is it on interim or not. But
Okay,
it's up to how the council would like to proceed. So at this time, again,
thank
there's
you.
one live public comment and one web form.
I didn't hear the last part of what you stated.
My apologies. We've got one live public comment and one web form public comment.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and take public comment.
Thank you. We will be displaying the first public comment received for this item. That's what you're seeing. Okay. And again, I will be reading the public comment out loud as it is displayed on the screen. This comes from Menlo Park resident Pastor Taraya. Pre-pandemic community meetings, especially those held at the Menlo Park Senior Center, gave us all the impression that our beloved elders would have a voice, not only in the design of the new senior center, but also in the plan for the 2-year interim space while construction is going on. My hope and prayer is that the voices will not get lost in the shuffle to trying to move the construction project forward in this challenging season. I wonder what they would say about the proposed move to Burgess Park coming right on the heels of this COVID-19 disconnect. I sincerely hope you will continue to bring the microphone to them and let them share their hearts. Thank you for your tremendous service and for your rising solid to every mountain. And then at this time, I would like to open the mic to Cheryl Bims. Cheryl, I've unmuted your mic. Are you able to unmute yours and share it?
Okay. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank council, staff, the community, everyone who's been working so hard on this project. And I just had some maybe ancillary comments or things to keep in mind. I know that the project is often referred to as the community center and library, and which is fine. I know what you're talking about. I think sometimes the scope and magnitude of it gets lost though. In my mind, I refer to it as a community complex because I'm, just keeping in mind that it's not only a community center, but it's a senior center, a youth center, fitness wellness center, and a library. And I think if we're able to always keep all of those components in mind, I think we show that we value every range of our community from the beginning stages to the ending stages of participation. So I just wanted to throw that out there as something to keep in mind when we, as we message this project. The other thing is I wanted to find out as we move forward, will we be able to get some more robust numbers and ideas? For example, we're talking about the seniors now, and I know the last city meeting I attended, a question was asked like how many seniors participate, and it didn't seem like a firm number was available. And it, and I think there were some discrepancies in terms of residents versus non-residents, and I totally understand. Everybody is welcome. I think, though, it's a responsible way to look at a project when you look at who you're reaching, because in talking to some local seniors, you can tell they're starting to get more excited. I'm talking about residents here in Menlo Park, about beginning to participate again in the senior center because of some trends that they were noticing. So I'm just kind of hoping that we can keep on having some, keeping data before us also when we talk about it. And lastly, I wanted to find out, are there going to be, or I'm sure there'll be changes to the schedule, but hopefully we can capitalize on some of the things with all of the closures and shutdowns in terms of, whatever has to be done to scope the project, and whatever in terms of construction, as the facilities aren't occupied. It seems like a great time to do a lot of the stuff that could otherwise be disruptive. And then also maybe thinking of a plan of what if the facilities aren't fully occupied anytime soon in the next few months. How does that shift the schedule? So that's all. And thank you again, everyone, for all the work you're doing.
Thank you for your public comment.
So,
Ms.
Madam,
Silver?
I just wanted to mention for the record, the reason why we're bifurcating this item and also for the public's benefit is that Vice Mayor Combs works for Facebook and has a conflict of interest with respect to the project itself. And so in order to allow him to participate on the policy questions regarding interim services, we have structured the agenda item this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silver, for that information. Mr. Murphy, are you still online?
Yes. What would you like?
And
What would you like to do
Go
next? Well, sorry. What would you like next? Would you like me to continue with the rest of the presentation?
confirm what the next steps are.
Sorry, so I missed the first part. Would you like me to continue on the rest of the presentation?
I believe you're on.
I can hear him, Cecilia.
I think we lost Cecilia.
Cecilia, if you can hear us, we've lost your video, or we've lost you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I think you're taking control of the meeting until she returns.
But I'm recused, and so this is a decision I can't take over.
Are you back, Cecilia?
Yes, how could you tell?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So I was just asking, do you want me to continue with the presentation, finish getting public comment, and then have a discussion about interim services?
Maybe I'll just chime in. If it's easier for Mr. Murphy just to continue with the conversation, then I can drop off at this moment and have the clerk contact me, text me when I can come back on. Would that work?
It works from a legal standpoint.
Okay, then we'll go with that. Thank you, Vice Mayor Combs.
And can I just sort of take my camera and microphone off and leave the room? Is that okay? Or do I need to sort of completely close out of the GoToWebinar application? And that's
Yes,
where this...
and this is Cara Silver. City Attorney. Yes, all you need to do in terms of recusal under this situation is just to turn your web camera off, and we will contact you.
Great.
Okay, Mr. Murphy, the floor is yours.
Okay. Great. So now I'm going to continue the presentation talking about the community complex. So comprised of multiple components. So just to remind everybody, the basic components, so it includes the existing Annetta Harris Community Center, the existing Menlo Park Senior Center, the existing Belhaven Youth Center or the after school program, the existing Belhaven Pool, and the existing Belhaven Branch Library that's currently located down the street at Belhaven School. So you can think of it as 5 basic existing facilities that would be replaced on this site at the end of Terminal Avenue. And the basic components physically include a new building that would be 3 stories. It would have 2 wings and a breezeway in between, opening onto Kelly Park. It'd be a new consolidated parking lot located in front of the building, and then a reconfigured pool in the same general location. So that's just a quick refresher on the components of the project. So this slide outlines the upcoming meetings that staff reviewed with the subcommittee. It reflects the basic steps that were considered previously, and it effectively adds a month on the aspirational timeline that we were discussing about a month ago. So that would be.
Justin, we can't see the picture. Excuse the interruption.
Let's see. Did you see
That works.
this slide?
Thank you.
Did you see this slide?
We did not.
Okay, so thanks. So just to recap the project components, I'll leave this up for a second so that people can get a refresher of what the proposed building would look like on the site. This is a view from a bird's eye view from Terminal, looking. The pool is in the existing location. Kelly Park's in the distance. So then the upcoming schedule. So this generally reflects the steps that were contemplated previously. It's a month onto the schedule, with ultimately looking for city council action in July instead of June. So now I'll just go through the basic steps. This is outlined in the written staff report. But the Planning Commission study session that was originally targeted for March 23rd would be held on May 11th. The vacation and abandonment that the City Council called for previously, we would keep that original date of May 18th, because that's otherwise there'd need to be a separate council action to change that date. You can't just change the date. You need the council to have an agendized action to change the date. So I think we can just keep that date with a single purpose of reviewing the abandonment. This item for review of a term sheet is kind of a check-in that staff is now proposing, just to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page, right track for ultimate success. June 23rd, again, similarly, that was the date that's already been advertised for the vacation and abandonment, so we would just keep that. And then we would look for the Planning Commission public hearing in June to prepare a recommendation to the City Council, and then City Council in July. So that, by keeping on that timeline that would allow the project to meet the starting point in February. And I know that there was a public comment question early about whether there's any ways to potentially accelerate things. And based off my understanding of things, I think the earliest we could start in would be that February timeframe. So I think the focus now is being able to get to the July council action. So a big component in this current era of social distancing is how we would pursue the public engagement. So we would try focused outreach as much as possible to existing residents, community members, facility user groups, and doing that through various means such as an online survey, video webinar, telephone town hall, and then continuing to to update the project website. We've got quite a few subscribers, and that's a good way for us to push out information. So another big consideration, not necessarily for tonight, but over the coming months, will be the budget consideration. So the offer from Facebook is very generous. Facebook has expressed to me and to others their continued commitment to this project. With the offer, it does come city obligation for funds, capital funds. There's a list here. Probably the two that I'll focus in on are the pool replacement. So that was not part of Facebook's initial offer, but the city council at the end of January did indicate that it wanted to include the pool replacement as part of the project, with the understanding that the city would pay for it. So we are working through what that design would look like, what that cost estimate is, and that would be a key component for city contribution. And then there's other enhancements that are being explored as well, and these were outlined in the January 28th staff report as well, in terms of sustainability and resiliency goals, in terms of understanding what the cost delta would be, and that to achieve higher level goals, that it may be the city's responsibility to pay for those. City and Facebook are working collaboratively to identify what those costs are, but maybe a city responsibility to achieve those higher goals. And then there's just a list of various funding sources. So the good news is there's already existing appropriations towards the project. City does have recreation impact fees available that could be used for the city contribution. There's also Measure T recreation bonds. There's a third round of bond funding available that could be issued to pay for, say, the pool component of the project. And then there's also the potential for an additional appropriation from the city's general fund. So there's a goal of having a meeting regarding the city's budget next week, where we may have some additional information, but it's definitely something over the next month or two we would really need to focus in on what the city's commitment to this project is going to look like. So with that, the main thing that we're looking to confirm tonight is just the continue to desire to proceed with a series of meetings as outlined above, with the ultimate goal of working towards council approval of the project in about 3 months of the July timeframe. So we believe it's technically feasible. Just need to ensure that going through the proper steps so that everybody feels comfortable proceeding with this generous offer for rebuilding the complex for generations to come. So with that, I will end the presentation. I'm available for questions. There's other staff is available as panelists. It may take us a minute or two to get them on board for answering questions, but there are a number of people that can help out this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. I'm not sure who had their hand up first. I'll start with who's on top. Councilmember Mueller.
It really
on top
does
of my
look
screen,
like
by the way.
it really does look like the Brady Bunch sometimes, huh? I just wanted to ask, so great staff report, excited about the project to figure out a way to move forward even in our present circumstance. The one question I have is, have we reached out to other applicants, which projects pending in the city that may be looking to figure out public benefit for contribution toward the pool and other amenities? I think there may be others who would be interested in that type of contribution, and I think that's going to be important, and I think our budget's going to be pretty tight moving forward into the next year. So I don't know if you've had those conversations yet, but I encourage them.
Thank you, Councilmember Mueller. Mr. Murphy, were you following up?
If you'd like, would you like us to start fielding questions, or I'm not sure if there's any other public comment. So I'm happy to, Mayor, if I'm happy to start the process of fielding questions, or it's up to you.
I know that Councilmember Carlton also had a question too.
So would you like me to start responding to Councilmember Mueller?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So, and I may need the city attorney's help with this as well, but I can say that I have not had any outreach to other applicants, and we may need to kind of understand the sequencing. I think I understand maybe the goal and intent, but exactly how we go about that and timing, we would need to be careful. If the project if another development project had already been approved and there's funds that could be put towards this, it's one thing, but we need to be careful of not prejudging other projects at this point in time. So it will become a sequencing issue. So if that's sufficient for now.
Understand completely. That being said, I know project applicants who are interested, if their projects get approved, they're trying to figure out what to do for public benefit. And so happy to pass on those folks to you. I don't know if their projects will get approved, but it's always good to know what public benefit is out there. So.
Councilmember Carlton.
Thank you. In the staff report, it says, and I quote, "As part of the City Council's review of the fiscal year 2021 budget, it would be important to consider the magnitude of the staff commitment to deliver this project on the requested timeline." Unquote. That's pretty clear that it is a big drain on staff to meet the timeline that we have put before us by Facebook. We've had a lot of discussions on the impact of the COVID-19 and the extra work on staff. While we all want to get this done as quickly as possible, we also don't want staff burnout. Have you thought of going to Facebook and discussing with them the timeline in relation to making sure that staff capacity isn't pushed beyond what would otherwise be necessary?
Sorry. Let's see. So yeah, so this is a great opportunity that the city has in front of it. So it's a lot of people are very excited to be able to work on this project. So there's a lot of excitement, but there is quite a bit of time and focus. There's a lot of moving parts to this. There's a lot of things that are happening concurrently to kind of be able to kind of work through all of this. So Facebook has been very supportive. They're very, and I believe that there may be a Facebook representative who not dialed in completely, who can dial in to kind of talk. They're very interested in this, but we do have, it's a moment of opportunity to kind of proceed on this. And if timelines gets extended too long, then you don't necessarily know what else could come up that could prevent this opportunity from moving forward. So we want to be able to kind of take advantage of the offer that's there. Frankly, I think that we're better off with focus than having it be extended too long. So it's just an understanding that to be able to execute on this does require quite a bit of staff resources now, but that may be better than some of the other alternatives.
And why was it in the staff report? I mean, it clearly says that it's important to consider the magnitude.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that just there for our consideration, or is that saying maybe we need to really consider this?
I think it's just trying to get an acknowledgement across staff, council, community that this is important. The council has identified multiple times that this is a priority, but it does come with work that it takes to pull it off. So it's just making sure that we all have an acknowledgement of what's involved.
I see Ray's hand up, so I'll.
Councilmember Mueller?
Yeah, so, and I thought about that too, Kat, but the counterpoint is this, and it's important. At a time when city budgets are like getting crushed and the economy is getting crushed, here we have a project that's being paid for by a third party that's going to deliver amenity to the city and also be an economic stimulus and put people to work. And so it's so if there's like, it's funny when you're in bad economic times, you know, oftentimes people talk about using government money as a stimulus to go ahead and help people. Well, we're not going to have a lot of money, but here we have this wonderful opportunity to have this third party to create that stimulus, and we still get the amenity. So if there's any sort of project that I think right now we should be excited about, this one and what it means to the local economy, to workers, to the city long term, this is the one where it's just like, all of a sudden now we got like a triple down on this project of what it actually means given our current economic situation.
And in theory, we might get it done cheaper too if the economy is not doing well. But I mean, I totally get it. I'm on the subcommittee, so I'm super excited about this too. I just saw that, and I also want to make sure that we're not burning out our staff and that staff aren't asking for help. So that's why I had to ask to make sure that staff is okay. Because if it is too much of a burden, I'd like to know about it.
Councilmember Nash?
Thank you. I just want to add to the conversation, which is that we also need to be really careful as we proceed. We don't know how long the economic situation is going to stay where we have more constraints than we have in the past, and we need to know what the annual budget considerations are for the future, and also just set expectations as to what things will look like. I also wanted to make two comments. One is I get very nervous when I hear about community amenities for projects that are not approved, and just want to make sure, as everybody has said, that we're very carefully working through that. And finally, that we have the floor plan layouts for the Belhaven Community Center. I'm really supportive of the project. I want to make sure that it works with the new, whatever the new physical distancing is, and that we have flexibility built in to the layout so that we can accommodate the unknowns that we currently have as to what will be the distancing for seniors, for youth, all of those unknowns that we don't know right now. Thanks.
Great. So think that was more of a comment than a question, but maybe if I can just touch a little bit on the social distancing. The inherent nature of this sort of facility, it would be impossible to fully comply with social distancing requirements, because part of this is sort of facility is to bring people together. So we could be cognizant of some of them, but it would be impossible to build a building that would meet all of the requirements. So we're going to be looking at it through a new lens, but such a facility would be much larger and at some point almost impossible to actually accomplish. So.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Councilmember Nash, did you have a follow-up?
I did, and that was, I totally, I understand that we have those physical constraints. I'm thinking more in the planning stages when there was a needs assessment that said we needed so many rooms for, let's say 10 people. That may not accommodate 10 people anymore. So we might want to have just that we're going into it realizing that if we had X number of rooms to accommodate this many people, we may want to adjust them so that they can either we understand that they'll accommodate fewer people up front with physical distancing, or we might want to adjust so we have fewer larger rooms, which are going to be more flexible in their space and how many people they can accommodate.
Councilmember Mueller?
Hitting that target's hard sometimes. So just to clarify for Councilmember Nash, I realize we got to be careful about public amenities, and I'm not suggesting we're not. What I'm actually suggesting is that in project management, when you have a decision tree sometimes, and there's a limiting factor like budget, what you can do is you can say, okay, if there's a limiting factor on budget here, and we know that there's another project coming through the pipeline, before we cross this out and say it's not feasible. So before we cross out and say the pool is not feasible, we have, because of a lack of city funding, we within that decision tree say, well, we know these projects are coming forward and there might be an opportunity if approved for them, not saying they're going to be approved, but just knowing that they're coming through the pipeline, there's public amenity there that they might be interested in it. We don't cross the pool off yet. And that's all it is. It's just like if there's a list that we're keeping track of at City Hall on public amenities. So not suggesting that there be any sort of like side deal or inside scoop, just that we know what this decision tree of what is possible.
Ms. Silver?
Yes, another way that you may want to address that issue is to take a look at the community benefits list or community amenities list and add specifically the renovation of the pool to that list.
Thank you, Ms. Silver. So Mr. Murphy, your screen went away, but I just wanted to follow up on, there was a question asked earlier, I think by Ms. Bims, and I believe it was answered at another council meeting regarding the current usage. I think, what did she ask? She asked about firm numbers on usage, and I believe that we have that information. So I'm not sure if it was added to the project website, but I just want to make sure that the public knows that the questions that are being asked are being followed up on, and that we do have the information. We just need to share it.
Yes, and I think it was shared. Happy to share it again. We'll follow up. I mean, as it relates to the senior program specifically, there's various programs. So happy to share what we have, and then if there's other data, we're happy to track that down too.
Thank you. So I actually don't have any questions on this. I'm on the subcommittee with Councilmember Carlton. And I am glad that we're moving forward on this. At this time, it's a difficult time for a lot of people, and I believe that it's always nice to have something to look forward to. I was grateful when Mr. Murphy brought the idea of bringing the seniors to Arriaga. I like that it's obviously in Menlo Park. It's a nice setting. It's something different than what they're used to. And I think about the ducks. I think about the library that's there. I think about what would be accessible for them. So I'm excited to hear what they think about this as well, since we're deciding on what they're going to do in the coming months. But I don't have any questions. Councilmember Carlton, I saw your hand.
Sure. I just wanted to thank staff and everyone and the public that have been involved as well in getting their feedback to us. And it feels like it's been a really positive team effort. And I'm really excited to see it moving forward. And I just wanted to thank everyone that's spent time making this be so successful so far.
Thank you. And do we need to make a motion and vote?
Let's see. So, and again, part of it has to do with whether we bring back or when we bring back Vice Mayor Combs. But the way staff did set up tonight's staff report was a recommendation that I think would benefit from a motion second. So if you wanted to do that, it would be two separate ones. So maybe it's you could first focus on the project itself, so the basic timeline steps that we identified, and then we can bring back Vice Mayor Combs regarding the interim services. And again, this is intended as a check-in. We're just confirming that, you know, this is where we're headed. There's still a number of steps and actions that need to happen, but I think a motion may be helpful for everybody.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is to approve, discuss steps and timeline. Is that correct, Justin?
Yes.
Thank you. With a motion by Councilmember Carlton and a second by Mayor Taylor. Councilmember Carlton, your vote. Thank you. Councilmember Mueller.
Aye.
Councilmember Nash.
Yes.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes.
The motion passes with Vice Mayor Combs recused. So at this time, should I invite Vice Mayor Combs to return?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I'm just grabbing a glass of water while he comes. I'll be right back.
Maybe we take a short 5-minute break while he jumps on?
Yes.
He's back, so. You're too efficient, Drew.
I'm sorry. I can go away again.
Mayor Taylor, did you want to still take a 5-minute break or just wait for
Well, it's
Councilmember
hard
Carlton
to do.
return?
We'll wait for Councilmember Carlton.
Okay.
And Councilmember Mueller, if you need so, we can go ahead and take the 5-minute.
Let's power through the next item, and then I think wait, what's the next item? Can't remember.
E2 advisory bodies. Sorry.
Yeah, so after that one, I'm actually recused on the Santa Cruz Avenue one, so I'll take my break then.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Murphy, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. So we did finish for Vice Mayor Combs' benefit. We did finish a motion on the project. So now we're back to interim services. And so on the project itself, we did ask for a motion second from the council just to make sure that we're all on the same page and the right track. So I think, Mayor, if you wanted to just see if there's any other questions, comments from the council regarding interim services, happy to field those, and then you can entertain a motion for us to proceed on the next
Thank
steps.
you, Mr. Murphy. Okay, are there any questions or comments, concerns about interim services? Okay, I don't see any hands. So I guess we at this point, we just need to make a motion.
Yes, just confirm the steps that were outlined in the staff report, and then we'll do more due diligence on those, and then come back to the council for final approval of that at the appropriate time.
A motion by Nash, a second. Thank you, Councilmember Carlton. So the motion on the floor is to approve the as reported interim services with a motion by Councilmember Nash, a second by Councilmember Carlton. Councilmember Carlton, your vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Mueller?
Aye.
Councilmember Nash?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Combs?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Okay, the next item on the agenda is E2 for regular business. Consider postponing interviews and appointments for all advisory bodies until city facilities reopen. And Ms. Herron, do we have any public comment on this item?
We did not receive any public comment on this item. At this time, I will ask any of our attendees to use the hand feature next to your name if you have a public comment on this. Being none, and Taylor, I return the meeting to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Herron. I appreciate that. Are there any questions or comments from the council on this item? Vice Mayor Combs?
Yeah, I was trying to, if I read the staff report correctly, it also mentioned sort of pausing the selection or transition of chair and the co-chair positions for council for the commissions. Is that correct? Was that what is part of the recommendation in the staff report?
We can't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, no, my apologies. It was total operator error on my point. So thank you, Vice Mayor Combs, for the question. The recommendation to postpone the chair and vice chair is with the first recommendation, which includes postponing recruitment, interviews, and appointments. We ask that we retain the current chairs and co-chairs until after those appointments are made. If the city council discusses and decides to continue with appointments on a schedule for now, then we would be appointing, or the chairs and vice chairs would be appointed at their next meeting after the appointments take place from council. I hope I didn't make that more confusing.
No, not at all. And so my question, hopefully I'm not making this more confusing. because it's not necessarily a big deal. But my only question is, since, if I'm correct, the Planning Commission is continuing to meet while none of the other commissions are meeting, if we should still allow for a transition of the chair and vice chair positions, given that it is continuing to meet. Again, distinguishable from the other commissions. Of course, there shouldn't be a transition because they're not meeting. Again, just something I wanted to pose, and was wondering if that was considered, making that distinction.
Yes, with the Planning Commission being our current only advisory body that is meeting, it is still being requested that we retain the same chair and co-chair until after appointments are made, because the appointments to the Planning Commission would still occur at those future dates as noted in the staff report.
Councilmember Carlton?
Yeah, I have, some of the subcommittees are still meeting in some of the commissions because they still have things going on. And I know a lot of people who are chomping at the bit and excited to get on board and at least have some downtime to read and get up to speed. And we always have a couple of vacancies that are difficult to fill. I've actually reached out to a couple of neighbors who are interested in even applying for the mosquito and vector control now. So I would not like to delay this. I think it's a great time, and a lot of people are really excited and wanting to get on board, and I don't think that we should stop them at this point from moving forward and being placed, because we have empty spots in a lot of these.
Thank you, Councilmember Carlton. Are there any other comments or questions from council on this item? Councilmember Mueller?
So I actually, I know we talked about it at the last meeting. I actually do support trying to get our commission starting to meet again virtually, even if it's on a more infrequent basis than before, like once every 6 weeks or something like that. But so I'd like to hear a plan from staff, but I want to get a meeting again because this is the new normal, you know? So it's time to get back to as normal as we can get. I do think that it's time to and actually I don't see a distinction. I think all the commissions can elect a new chair and a new vice chair. They all know each other. People who have served on the commission, even who are coming off, can help pick the new chair. Like usually it's someone who gets along with everyone, so there'll be a good new chair for the next people coming along. So I just think let's figure out a way, and if there's an issue in getting back to normal, then highlight for us. But I think it's time. Like it's been a long time since some of these committees met, and they're chomping at the bit. So.
Vice Mayor Combs, did you have your hand up?
I did, and it was to generally express my overall support for the staff recommendation of postponing. But the extent to which others are interested in seeing something else or taking a different track, I'm certainly open to it. Again, my concern was the staff time and resources, and just how that looks, and sort of getting the other commissions meeting, virtually. I can imagine it's a pretty big challenge, and a lot of the commissions are supported by just one staff person, and is that staff person up on sort of scheduling and setting up virtual conference calls, video conference calls, and then what specific requirements have to be implemented because they're public meetings. So those were my concerns, and generally why I was supportive of staff direction on this. But again, the extent to which there may be sentiment among my colleagues, among you guys, for a different direction, I certainly again would be open to that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Combs. Councilmember Mueller?
Yeah, so actually, and I didn't comment on that, I don't have a problem with us waiting another month to do appointments, but I'd like to get the meeting started up again. And candidly, maybe we need to amend how we allow meetings to proceed. I mean, I don't think commission meetings necessarily need to, well, it'd be great for them to have Zoom. It's a lot logistically. Maybe we go ahead and pass something that says commissions, except for the planning commission, can meet via teleconference with a phone number that people can call in on, and just get them going again. So, I mean, I've appeared on lots of teleconference meetings. They're challenging, but with one person running the meeting, you can get them done. So, so those are my. I don't have a problem if we wait a month to start appointing people.
Councilmember Nash?
I am in favor of waiting a month or so to start appointing people, because I think that there are individuals out there who have not applied because they just haven't had their, they haven't realized that the appointments were going forward. And I think they would be interested in applying if they were, if we actually had a little bit more time and had now that things are settling down to this new normal. I think it would be advantageous to wait another month. And I'm also wondering if, I know that we had an attendance report sent out as a staff report about a month ago or so. And I'm wondering if we want to, at some point, consider whether we want to have a threshold for attendance, and how we would go about doing that. And I have not thought about it before tonight. It just occurred to me when we were talking.
If I may just respond to the comment, Councilmember Nash, there is a threshold for attendance. It's in our city council policy 19-004, I believe. Offhand, I don't remember what the kind of threshold was. I think it's something like 63 or 67%. And then the city council can take action to address that with the member who has an attendance below that.
So perhaps that would be, I think that would be worthwhile looking at when we do appointments next time.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carlton?
I believe it's 50%, because I looked at that too. So I would like to make a motion that we leave the appointments open and maybe close them on the 5th of May and appoint the new round of people to the commissions on May 12th.
So if we have recruitment open until the 5th of May, was the suggestion?
Yeah, that's 2 more weeks.
Correct.
And,
I'm just thinking of the agenda packet for the 12th.
Right, and then we vote on May 12th.
I can probably turn around the staff report on the 7th to have that published in the agenda for the 12th, if the council so desires.
Councilmember Nash, did you have a follow-up?
I just wanted to make sure that staff is comfortable with that, since that's different than the recommendation. That sounds fine to me.
Okay.
So I don't think you can see me. I guess there's a connectivity issue, but we're fine with the recommendation, but just a reminder that we've got people in acting roles, and so the staff support to those commissions may be different as we move forward, but that's probably not a problem. So just a heads up. And I don't know that we have the technology depth to deal with all of the go-to meetings, but certainly we could do a conference call.
Shall I add that I'll add that as part of my motion.
Great.
The current applicants, I have a question. The current applicants, so we have a total of 20 people that have applied for a commission or a committee, and with an extension of the deadline by 2 weeks, obviously we would inform them that we're extending the deadline and we're still recruiting.
Yes, I can definitely reach out to our current applicants. However, although the chart shows that there are 20 applicants, we have a couple of applicants who applied for multiple positions. So at this time, we don't have enough applicants to fill all the vacancies, but by extending the recruitment period, we can hopefully solicit some more applications. Again, if the city council can let any of their friends and family know that we're recruiting. Anyone listening to this meeting, if you'd like to submit an application, feel free to reach out to me. And again, our website is still up to date. I can add the new recruitment period to the web as well.
Let us know which ones are looking for people if it's not obvious, and we can stick it up on Nextdoor and talk to neighbors.
Sure. In the staff report, I believe it shows the applicants we have for each committee. As you can see, I mean, the first one is Complete Streets. We have 3 vacancies currently with 1 application received. And the San Mateo County Vector, Mosquito and Vector District, we don't have any for that. And again, depending on how the appointments go, some of these vacancies that have applicants, those applicants may be appointed to different commissions and therefore not be applicable for others. So applications for any and all of that are listed. And again, it's most appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
And can I just point out, and Judy, correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of with Complete Streets, that's a 9-member commission, right? And so in theory, if only one person applies and there are 2 vacancies, it would revert essentially to a 7-member commission, which is the normal size of all of the other commissions, correct?
Correct. And I tried to kind of piece it out before the meeting, and with the applicants we have, if the Complete Streets was a 7-member body, there might be a way to move applicants around and see if they're willing to serve on other commissions. But what just kind of came to me is the need for planning commission interviews. So if we're accepting applications until the 5th of May, we will have to schedule a special meeting for planning commission interviews before the 12th.
And we leave all of them open except for planning commission, because that seems to be pretty much done.
Sure, if that's part of the motion, definitely doable.
That's my motion. Yeah, that's fine. We can move forward on that.
Thank you. Okay, so just to confirm, the motion on the floor is to keep recruitment open until May 5th, excluding the planning commission, and then performing interviews before the 12th and appoint on the 12th to all advisory bodies. And that motion is set by Councilmember Carlton. We can have a second. Thank you, Councilmember Nash. By roll call vote, Councilmember Carlton.
Aye.
Councilmember Mueller.
Aye.
Councilmember Nash.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Combs.
Yes.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herron. The next item on the agenda is E3, award a construction contract to Interstate Grading and Paving for the Santa Cruz and Middle Avenue. And excuse me, Councilmember Mueller, is this the item that you are recused on?
I was informed by the city attorney that I need to recuse on this item, so I will talk to you guys.
Okay, thank you. So item E3 is to award a construction contract to Interstate Grading and Paving for the Santa Cruz Avenue and Middle Avenue Street Rehabilitation Project and appropriate $410,000 in additional funding. To make the presentation is our Assistant Public Works Director, Chris Lamb.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Lamb, Assistant Public Works Director. And give me a second here to share my screen with you. I've got a brief presentation. Let me know verbally, please, if you can see it, because I think I will lose the ability to see you once it's working.
We can see the screen.
You can? Okay, great. All right, so I am here to talk to you about the Santa Cruz and Middle Street Rehabilitation Project. So we'll do a quick project description. One of the main talking points for tonight is actually the pavement analysis that was done on the type of pavement to be used on the project. And then I'll just recap the conclusion and the actions that we're asking for the council to make tonight. So quickly, kind of the project description. So the project consists of kind of two components, ranging from Santa Cruz Avenue between Orange and Olive Street, and then also Middle Avenue between Olive and San Mateo Drive. Those repairs, or the work that's going to be done, is to repair and overlay damaged asphalt on both streets. We're promoting safer intersections with new curb ramps on both Santa Cruz Avenue and Middle Avenues. We're trying to promote better pedestrian access with new rectangular rapid flashing beacons, sidewalks and driveways on Santa Cruz Avenue, and new bike lanes and striping on Santa Cruz as well. And then also correct some existing ponding issues with new curb and gutter and flow lines. The project was funded out of the 2019-2020 Capital Improvement Program. The project also has a One Bay Area, or OBAG, grant in the amount of $647,000 that would be reimbursed at the end of construction. And then we're also requesting an appropriation of $410,000 tonight from the Construction Impact Fee Fund to make up some the project balance of what we expect this project to cost. So just kind of recap the overall project history. Back in January of 2017, the council authorized the staff to apply for the One Bay Area grant, and we were awarded that grant. In February of last year, staff prepared an information item for council that would outline the project approach that was planned for the project, and really that was intended to kind of outline the needs to proceed quickly on the April and May items, which in order to stay on track. Ultimately, we were looking for a bid-ready package that was approved by council, or excuse me, by Caltrans by the end of January of this year. So in order to make that timeline, we needed some direction by council back in April and May of last year on some of the project elements. So following those April and May meetings, where we essentially approved the project alignment and council authorized by resolution the parking removals on Santa Cruz Avenue within the project limits, we then had a request in June. I think it was actually at the award of last year's street resurfacing project to look into quiet asphalt pavements on future paving projects. As we proceeded through design, we did that by the end of November. We had a plan submittal ready to be submitted to Caltrans for review. So that's a big milestone on these federally funded projects. The Caltrans is even though it's federal dollars, they are the kind of the awarding and authorizing body. So we got that plan package submitted by the end of November, and on January 22nd, we received the approval from Caltrans to proceed with the project. Our timelines moving forward from that January approval are guided off that by the grant requirements. So once we are authorized to proceed with construction, we have certain timelines that we need to meet in order to award the project and get our first invoices submitted. So those timelines are July and October, and so right now we're definitely on track to meet those. On March 10th, we opened bids on the project. Interstate Grading and Paving was our apparent low bidder. We reviewed obviously their qualifications. They've done a lot of this type of work, and so we're happy to have them on the job. The contract documents also stipulate that we should make the award within 45 days of bid opening. By coming here tonight for the award, we are a few days safe of making that. Obviously, I think with all of our emergency issues that we're dealing with right now, we had actually intended to come a little bit earlier, but we're happy that we can get it to you within that time. The start date is obviously kind of pending when we'll be able to physically get back to work, but we're hoping that by awarding tonight and getting the contract executed, we would be back to work or starting work on the job towards the end of May or potentially early June. And we have a 110 working day calendar for the project. So some of the moving on to some of the pavement analysis. So again, we received the request from Councilmember Nash at the June 4th meeting last year, and I think at the time we didn't have a direction on what that quiet asphalt meant, but we've done some research, and really there's a couple of different options, and one is open graded friction course, and the other is rubberized asphalt. So both have their uses, both have their strengths, both have their weaknesses. We included a memo from the project manager, Michael Fu, on the project in terms of the analysis of those two types of pavement. And so I'll briefly kind of go over some of the pros and cons and why we're recommending what we're recommending. So open graded friction really achieves its kind of sound attenuation properties by having voids in the actual asphalt itself that trap sound. One of the other kind of general benefits that comes along with that, because it's a bit porous in nature, is that there's stormwater, rainwater drainage functionality built into that. It allows the rain to get off the pavement surface quicker. That helps obviously reduce skidding in the rain, and it also has some improved roadway visibility. Rubberized asphalt mitigates its noise a little bit differently, so that's the properties that lead to the sound attenuation are really just the smoother and a softer surface. It's environmentally friendly as it uses recycled tire scraps mixed into the asphalt blend. Again, it has a very dark feature that striping really kind of pops against, improving roadway visibility. And it's a soft, flexible material that performs well against pavement cracking, which is one of a challenge in pavement maintenance. So both pavement types are good pavements. I don't want to lead you to believe that we're not recommending them because they're not good. They're just not appropriate for this project. So open graded asphalt really needs to be used in more rural applications or on roadways that have some sort of subsurface drainage program or designed into it. So one of the benefits of getting that runoff, that stormwater runoff, to kind of percolate down through the asphalt is it's great for skidding in rainy conditions, but the water is also brutal from a maintenance standpoint on asphalt. And if that water doesn't have somewhere to go and it gets trapped against a concrete curb, up on the edge, then it's just going to lead to quicker deterioration. Because of that, we on projects that we've used open graded asphalt in the past, we've experienced a high frequency of maintenance needs. We've installed open graded asphalt in the past on both the other phase of Santa Cruz that had been done previously, and also Willow Road. So we do have experience with installing it. I think that those were probably not the correct applications for open graded asphalt, and as a result, we've like I said, we've had a lot of repairs that have needed to be done. One of the other impacts of installing open graded is it kind of limits us on our full range of pavement treatments and pavement maintenance. So earlier tonight, council approved the SB1 funding projects of performing slurry seals. Obviously, if we slurry seal a pavement type that is intended to be porous and open, we are going to completely change the characteristics of that pavement. So as a result, those streets have not received slurry seal treatments and are now in need of repair with a full resurfacing project, or have been done already.
Can I ask a quick question with regards to that? The streets where we have open graded, what was the reasoning behind the decision to use open graded there? Was it also a sound dampening or the possibility of less sound? Was that the driving factor?
Yeah, and I'll say we have used both of these in the past, so we are familiar with installing both pavement types. In the case of the open graded in the past, it was I think speaking to some of the individuals that were involved in those projects, it was a last minute change to what was proposed on the project, and it was intended to be sound dampening. So moving on to the rubberized asphalt. So similarly, on both pavement types, there's plenty of studies, and most studies that you see that kind of describe the amount of sound attenuation that's achieved. Those studies are done at higher speeds. So most roadway noise at the cutoff is usually around 35 or 40 miles an hour. Below that, it's a mix of engine noise, wheel against asphalt noise, and just generally other general roadway noise. Once you get up to those higher speeds, the predominant noise that you would hear is due to the friction between the tires and the roadway surfaces. So we are not recommending either of these because that noise attenuation that's achieved is minimal at the speeds on Santa Cruz Avenue and Middle. Rubberized asphalt is also, frankly, it's difficult to construct. We installed rubberized asphalt on Sand Hill Road. It was the project was still successful. During construction, it was difficult to achieve the required compaction, and we actually, I believe, received some credit for not getting the full compaction that was required on the project. It's the requirements to install are 2-inch lifts or 2-inch layers of asphalt. So currently, as we have the project designed, it's a 3-inch grind and overlay on both Santa Cruz and Middle Avenues. That's kind of the standard that the cities have applied on our overlay projects for the past many years. It's a amount of grind and overlay that allows for kind of a lasting roadway. I believe on Sand Hill, we did do a 2-inch grind and overlay with rubberized, but we're not recommending that for this project. So some of the challenges again come to do with just the product itself is a more difficult product to work with. In doing our research, we did reach out to a number of different professionals in the industry. We obviously in our the document that we provided, we cited a number of resources. We've also had some conversations with the contractor that we awarded the project to. For this project, they do have experience with rubberized asphalt, in addition to our contractor from last year, who we still have on board for some follow-up work, and then a third contractor that also did the project. It was pretty much a consensus that they felt for this project, due to the quantity and the type of roadway that Santa Cruz and Middle Avenues are. Frankly, across the board, they recommended just a standard asphalt mix. So because of that, we are actually just proposing to stick with our standard 3-inch grind and overlay of hot mix asphalt. We're asking the council tonight to award the contract to Interstate Grading and Paving, appropriate the $410,000 to the project from the Street Impact Fund. Alternatively, if council does request staff to proceed with the rubberized asphalt, then we'd ask for an appropriation of $651,000 to perform the 4-inch 2-lift rubberized asphalt option. We feel that it's vital for the project to move forward from a public access and connectivity basis, and again, the staff recommends that hot mix asphalt based on those criteria. Understanding that this is probably not the decision, that the recommendation that is asked for by one council member, I just want to kind of throw out there, if there's future council discussion that's desired on kind of citywide treatments of pavements, then and how the city applies its standards, then I think staff is happy to come back in a future discussion to kind of talk about the pros and cons of kind of how we could establish some policy of how we want to move forward. And so with that, that concludes my presentation. We're happy to ask any questions or answer any questions on the project.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb, for the presentation. Councilmember Nash, since a part of the direction last June was to look into these other options, did you have any follow-up questions for Mr. Lamb?
Can I make comments, or is this just for follow-up questions right now?
Comments as well.
Okay.
Anything you'd like to say?
Well, first of all, I really want to thank staff, because I think that they put a lot of effort into looking into this alternative asphalt, and I greatly appreciate it. It is something that those of us who live on Santa Cruz Avenue in a different portion have had experience with the quiet asphalt, and it really does make a difference, even if the standards say that it's at higher speed. It has made a difference. I have not spoken to anyone who has said that any resident who said it didn't. And so this actually was a request from residents. And I have to say up front, they're not in my district, they're in District 5. But the residents came forward knowing that I live on Santa Cruz Avenue as well, and requested that we try to get quiet asphalt again on the surface, since we don't have it. It's not there right now. And having said that, I think given the timeline, given the COVID crisis, I am not going to push forward at this point. It looks like we don't have time to do that, but I would request that we, in the future, continue to look at quiet asphalt, as it really does make a difference, not only to the people who live on a busier street, but also to those neighbors surrounding the street. I do question, and one of the reasons I'd like to look into it for future projects is based on the material that was given to me by the Public Works Department. It actually looks like the maintenance is much less, that the rubberized asphalt does last a lot longer. And so I think long term, the budget impact does equal out. And with some of the other benefits from the environmental benefits, obviously the traffic noise, the fact that the lines on the striping shows up better, and its overall durability, I think that it is something that's worth looking into. But I think at this point, we just proceed given the timeline and the grant that's in limbo if we don't. So thank you so much for all the effort, Chris, and the rest of the group.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash. Are there any other follow-up questions or comments? Vice Mayor Combs?
Yeah, I'll just add that I appreciate the Councilmember Nash for bringing this this issue. I actually didn't know that this was a thing until a short while ago, and so generally, I think obviously when it comes to issues of noise, this is mostly a concern on more highly trafficked streets that also have homes, right? And so Menlo and Santa Cruz and Willow, and I do, and I'm in general supportive of that being a factor that we look at, and especially again, like I say, those instances where we have higher traffic thoroughfares and there are homes located on them, or residents of any kind of apartments or homes, then I would like city staff to make it a priority. And maybe this is already the case of looking at options that are possibly less noisy. So again, I appreciate for Councilmember Nash for raising this issue, because I do think it's an important issue.
Councilmember Carlton?
Yeah, I agree. It's an important issue. I'm just kind of confused. I thought that you had said that this was not as durable. I just wanted to get clarification, please, Mr. Lamb.
So the open graded asphalt is definitely not is definitely a less durable material. That material is prone to cracking, and without a way for the water to escape the pavement area, it'll lead to very fast deterioration. The kind of some of the timelines on how long a regular hot mix asphalt will last versus rubberized, I believe it's in the memo. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now, but I believe it's somewhere between 12 and 15 years for a standard hot mix overlay, and in a rubberized asphalt, I believe that the numbers are something like 14 to 17 years. So it's a little bit better, not substantially, but it does perform pretty well.
Okay, so one is worse than the standard street, and one is a couple of years better. The one that's a couple of years better is the one with the rubberized, and that's using recycled tires, correct?
Correct.
I worked on a bill and on a couple of different issues with Senator Jerry Hill years ago with concerns about using recycled tires and the lead content. It was not only in the schoolyards with the lead content coming up, but also in the runoff on water, picking up the lead content and redistributing that lead back into the ground and the waterways. Has that been something that's been researched on this? Because if we're using recycled tires, it's basically going to be the same thing.
I'd have to look into a little bit more. I don't believe that that came up in our research.
Okay, because it's just one of those things I've worked on before with Jerry Hill, and from what I have seen so far, I would be shocked if there wasn't going to be a lead issue that came up out of that. So before the city uses it, I'd like to ping his EQ staff or look into that to make sure that there are no unintended consequences if we move forward on that in the future.
Sure.
I'm all about the quiet streets. I live on a busy street myself. I just want to make sure that we don't accidentally invite other issues.
I appreciate your comment, Councilmember Carlton. Mr. Lamb, right now, the option that we have that you think is the best for Menlo Park is the rubberized asphalt and not the, I'll call it the quiet overlay. So you're recommending that we use the rubberized asphalt?
Actually, so the staff is recommending that we proceed with a standard asphalt and neither of the two pavement options that have the sound attenuation properties.
Okay. And then prior to Councilmember Nash's inquiry and suggestion last year, had the city looked into this option previously?
So the city has installed rubberized asphalt on two projects that I am specifically aware of, and we had installed open graded asphalt on two streets as well. Those ones were back in the early to mid 2000s on the first phase of Santa Cruz Avenue that was repaved, and Willow Road, which is in between Middlefield and 101, which is in need of repaving.
Okay. One of the concerns that I have about an overlay is whether or not when you paint a crosswalk that it's more visible if it's done with a complete construction of a street as opposed to repair. And so just thinking out loud, if there's one of the streets on Middle and Santa Cruz need a crosswalk and they're getting a new street, the crosswalk would be a lot more visible for a longer period of time than it would be if it was a repair, like a slurry, and then you reinstall the painting for the crosswalk. And so just thinking about when we do street repairs, how often do we want to do them? How much money do we want to invest in them? I'm thinking about our environment. And so whatever we're doing in any project moving forward, especially tomorrow being Earth Day, we need to be thinking about our environment first. So we have the majority of the money to do this project. We need a little bit more. We're going to pull it out of a fund. But how we spend our money, I think we need to start paying more attention to, not just because of where we are in our economy, but just thinking about our environment in the future. And so a highly trafficked street like Santa Cruz Avenue, Willow, Hamilton, we think of another one, Alameda de las Pogas, parts of Menlo Park, but just moving forward, what we do is a reflection of who we are as a city. And so if you had chosen, I would have been glad if you said, yes, the quiet street is the way to go. I would fully support that. I don't want to get in the way of a project moving forward, but I do want to be mindful of how we move forward and what we're doing and what is our intention. For me, I'm thinking about our environment, the smell of rubbers. I mean, when Councilmember Carlton brought up the bill, all I could smell is rubber out on the road, because periodically we do, especially when it's hot out. So just, moving forward with our next project, I know that I think it was SB1 that we approved earlier in the consent calendar, thinking about all the other streets in Menlo Park that need to have pavement. I would like that intention moving forward to be about our environment, about who we are as a city. It's not a reach code, but it's something we can reach for, is to include our environment and how we move forward in our decision making. And to say all of that, thank you for the staff report and for the information, and thank you for providing additional information and research that Councilmember Nash asked for. So I do appreciate that. Thank you. And with all of that, I guess now we can move forward with the staff recommendation to award the contract. Oh, before you go, Mr. Lamb, I just wanted to check in to see how often do we evaluate the quality of work of who we're contracting with?
So so as part of any contract that we're going to award, we definitely look into their references to ensure that we feel that they can perform the work that's being bid to complete the project. So we have some requirements in our bid documents that they've completed similar types of work, and we do require that they submit references. So we do check references on projects, particularly like the street resurfacing projects and slurry seal projects. There's pretty much a handful of kind of players that we regularly receive bids on. So we have usually a pretty good idea of kind of the quality that we're going to get when we advertise and open those bids.
Okay, thank you. And there's a follow-up comment or question by Councilmember Nash.
I just wanted to comment that I think certainly what we did in this case was we looked for the asphalt that was the regular asphalt. I'm not coming up with the name of it right now. And then once we got the low bid there, we asked them about the rubberized asphalt. At some point in the future, I think it would be worthwhile looking at actually bidding out for the rubberized asphalt, or if that does not contain lead, or whatever the product is, rather than asking the original person who didn't bid on the project to then provide information on the rubberized asphalt, which is not what they actually were bidding on in the first place.
Vice Mayor Combs.
Yeah, what was I going to say? I want to say, like, I totally appreciate the staff's recommendation on this, and I think this is exactly in this scenario the type of recommendation you want from staff, which is the more financially conservative and more sort of well-known option. All that being said, that like literally, if we had gotten this agenda item a few months ago, I would have been in favor of going with a rubberized option, assuming that it does not contain lead, it does not poison. I would have very much been in favor and supported that. It's only looking at all that has changed in the past month or so, and a very different sort of financial outlook for the city, and the likely hard decisions that will have to be made in the future. It's hard for me to, at this moment, sort of be in favor of the additional 200 or the additional amount of money for the rubberized option. But again, like I very much want to express again my support for, you know, in those instances where it makes sense, like I said, like highly trafficked streets where there are residents on it, and those sections of streets that we should be looking at whatever is some of the more innovative solutions for sort of, you know, limiting the noise impacts or the noise pollution that come. And so I don't know if is there a motion? Should I make a motion, or does someone else make a motion and I'll second it?
Oh, I need to ask for public comment.
Okay. Oh yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Herron, do we have any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. I haven't received any web form public comments. However, this time I would like for any of our attendees to use the hand icon next to their name so they can raise their hand. We can open your mic if you have any public comment on this item, which is E3, award construction contract for the Santa Cruz and Middle Avenue Street Rehabilitation Project. So again, for any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please use that hand feature next to your name. Just a couple more seconds. Seeing none, I return the meeting to you, Mayor Taylor.
Okay, Vice Mayor Combs, you're calling for a motion.
Sure. So I move that we accept the staff's recommendation and award a construction contract to Interstate Grading and Paving for Santa Cruz and Menlo Avenue Street Rehabilitation Project and appropriate $410,000 in additional funding. And this is again for the hot mix asphalt option. I think I'm hopefully I'm describing it correctly.
I'll second.
So the motion on the floor is to approve this item as written. We have a motion by Vice Mayor Combs, a second by Mayor Taylor. By roll call vote, Councilmember Carlton.
Aye.
Councilmember Nash.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Combs.
Yes.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes.
The motion passes with Councilmember Mueller recused.
Thank you, Ms. Herron. The next item on the agenda is E4. An update the City Council and public on COVID-19 health emergency and the city's response. And do we, just going to ask Ms. Starla Jerome Robinson and Chief Bertini will be presenting.
Yes, I was going to have Chief Bertini and Nicole Acker, who's been serving as our PIO, report out this evening. And that's it. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Council. Dave Bertini, Chief of Police. Can you all hear me? Great, thank you. I just want to report out on some of the activities with this current emergency. We have had a very robust response through the EOC, attempting to deal with this emergency on all levels. From the operations standpoint, there's a few things I kind of wanted to bring to everybody's attention. I'm sure you're all aware of the new order having to do with face coverings that came out last week. This order is actually not enforceable until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So as of tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., this order for face covering by the county health officer will be enforceable in the same way that we enforce the shelter-in-place order. And it's going to be the same escalation for complaints of folks who are not following the order for face coverings. That is warnings, and then eventually, if necessary, an arrest, although we are going to be trying to assist people in understanding the order. There's a few things that people should know about it. There are some exceptions in the order having to do with medical conditions, people's age, driving alone in a vehicle. But in most other circumstances, a person must have a face covering when they're out in public, especially if they are going to an essential business. As a matter of fact, the businesses are ordered not to serve anyone who is not wearing a face covering. And if the person does not comply, they end up having to call the police. So we would really appreciate everybody's adherence to this. I was out, I visited almost every grocery store this afternoon, and I saw about a 90% already, a 90% rate of folks wearing face coverings, so that's a good thing. So that is going into effect tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock for enforcement. I want to thank Councilmember Carlton for the donation or receiving the donation of the face masks. This is an example of what we received. We have about 10,000 of these. Half of these are going to be used by the police department. Officers will be carrying them around with them so that if they do run into folks who do not have a face covering, we could just hand them one and say, here's a face covering. They're kind of single use. They won't last very long, but they're good enough for a temporary face covering when someone's going out to do whatever essential business they need to do. And the other half of those we have given to our logistics. And logistics will be dealing with how we're going to go about using or utilizing those masks. A couple other things that I want to bring to everybody's attention. I was asked a question by Councilmember Carlton today about driver's licenses and the fact that DMV is closed. And I think it's important that folks understand this. And I'm not sure it's well publicized, but if your license expires between March 1st and May 31st of this year, you are automatically extended to May 31st. So even though your driver's license is technically expired, you're okay. And that's going to be reassessed by DMV come May 31st to see whether DMVs are open or not. Also, the real ID requirement that the federal government had put a October 2020 deadline on, that has been pushed out an entire year. So everybody don't panic. You have until October of 2021 to apply and get your real ID for all those federal things that you'd want to do, like flying, going into federal installations, etc. We also had some concern last week about some statistics, and I sent statistics to the council regarding certain types of crimes. I have updated statistics here if you'd like me to go over those, having to do with domestic violence, child abuse, and hate crimes, if you'd like those statistics. Okay, I see nodding.
Yes, please. Yes.
Sure. So we ran the numbers from the date of the shelter-in-place order. That's March 16th, 2020 to yesterday, April 20th of 2020. During that time, the police department took 12 domestic violence cases, 1 child abuse case, and there were no hate crime cases. And there was a total of 181 cases, criminal cases during that time frame. So during the shelter-in-place time frame. Just as an example from last year, just so we have something to compare to, during the same time frame, March 16th, 2019 to April 20th, 2019, we had 8 domestic violence calls or cases, 5 child abuse cases, and note hate crimes. And during that time frame, there were a total of 331 criminal cases taken. So although there was an uptick during the comparison from last year to this year of 4 domestic violence cases, child abuse cases went down by 4, and just overall criminal cases have also fallen during the 2 comparative years. And we know we continue to accept all calls of any service. We're still operational 100%. People could dial 911. They could text to 911 if they can't get on the phone. There are numerous websites that people can go to if they need assistance, and shelters are still open for any person who is suffering from domestic violence, and all of the services that were available prior to this emergency are still available to folks. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions you have about the operations part of this disaster.
Are there any questions from the council?
I just wanted to let you guys all know I'm on the phone. I just can't come on because all the webcam usage is being used.
Thank you, Councilmember Mueller. Councilmember Carlton?
Sure. I just wanted to do a shout out. Jason Chang, who is a business owner in Menlo Park, who creates peptides. Peptides are used in curing cancer and also in developing vaccines for COVID-19. And he was the one that I spoke to that donated the masks for our police, for our staff, and he's agreed that our police and Starla Joan Robinson, our city manager, can donate them as they see fit to different people within the community that have a need for masks as well. And so I just wanted to thank him so much because he's a very valued part of our community, and we sincerely appreciate him making that donation to us. Also, I sit on the county board for domestic violence and wanted to do a shout out for a nonprofit called Cora, who's also one of the organizations that our city donates money to support, who helps people who have domestic violence issues. And we're hearing that, not terribly surprisingly, when people get caught up in the house together, domestic violence is definitely becoming more of an issue. And so thank you so much to our police force for helping address that, and to the nonprofits that are available to support the people that need that. I assume that somewhere on our website we have the information available for someone who might need that, who's in such a situation. If not, maybe we can add that, maybe a link to Cora or something like that, because a lot of people are in a situation where it's very dangerous for them to reach out for help. So they have to do so in subtle ways.
Right, and that was something that went out last week in one of the updates that have been going out for every week.
Yeah, no, it's a problem across the country, not just us. Oh, and it's not in front of us right now, but I saw that the some of the tools that were reviewed later on in our information resulted in the Menlo Park Police finding 4 stolen cars, and I just wanted to congratulate you on that. Well done.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nash?
Thank you. A couple questions. One is, I hope I know the answer to, and that's just, does the police department have enough masks for themselves, presumably of a N95?
Yes, we have a supply of N95 masks and other types of face coverings that we're utilizing. It's not something that's not going to be exhausted, but we're constantly looking for more suppliers. We did get some from the county, and we're already sourcing a bigger supply of those. But at this point, we are okay.
And then that's great news. And I was wondering if you're seeing any increase in speeding, or I'm getting a lot of comments and seeing a lot of comments about people speeding, and perhaps it's just because there's many more pedestrians out, so people are more aware of it. But I wonder if you're seeing that, or if there's any concerns there.
So I've gotten 0 complaints about speeding. I was speaking to our public works director, and she also has not received any complaints. I was out on the street for about 6 hours today, and I did not see anybody speeding myself.
Vice Mayor Combs?
Yeah, I just, one has a question. So in obviously Santa Clara County, there isn't a requirement for mask covering. And at least one of the reasons the public health department for Santa Clara County offered or proffered was because of policing resources were already fairly taxed, and didn't want to add this as another thing that they would have to, police would have to worry about. I was wondering if the chief could just sort of respond. Do you have concerns along those lines at all?
I do, and I've already voiced the concerns. My concern is, as of tomorrow morning, our call volume for we're calling COVID-19 violations is going to probably double. I think people may start calling for folks walking down the street not wearing a mask, and obviously by the time we get there, they'll probably be gone. Not to say that people cannot report these violations. The thing is that they will have to be prioritized. You know, we have to go to other calls first before we handle these type of calls, but we will respond when we have the resources to respond. But we will see in the next week or so. I'll see how many of the no mask wearing calls or no face covering calls we get. Thus far, just like last week, we get about 30 to 40 calls a day right now for sheltering in place violations, mostly having to do with gardeners and kids playing. Those are the two major ones. But we'll see when this becomes enforceable tomorrow morning, whether that creates a large uptick.
Councilmember Carlton?
Yeah, the gardener thing is interesting because we've got people on Nextdoor basically spreading opinion rather than fact. And a lot of it is pushing forward saying that if it's a single gardener, it's okay. And I know it's not. And I have to say, I asked Chief Bertini about this today, and I was saying, why don't we bring this to council? Because I'm pretty sure that the COVID virus isn't hiding in my tree. But he very wisely pointed out that for that gardener to get to my neighbor's house, the gardener might have to stop at a gas station and fill up the car, and then go to another store to get the gardening tools or to get the different equipment, and that it's the along the way getting there. And sometimes I feel like we work on being so polite when we talk to people that the actual reality gets past, and we just need to say, look, no gardening unless a tree fell and is blocking the road, you know, and maybe explaining why, because I think that helps the bitter pill of why we're doing it. And I understand why it's frustrating to people, but I appreciate the work that you guys are doing in this. I know it's overwhelming to get that many calls on this. I did want to say, I forgot to mention, not only Jason Chang from CS Bio, thank you very much for all the masks, but also Yobi Benjamin donated 100 test kits for our first responders. And those went through to Harold Shuppelhoman, but are also available to our police as are necessary. If anyone urgently needs to get the test kits and our first responders, he also donated them to us. So we're very blessed with generous people who are donating and supporting our first responders and our staff as well. So I wanted to do a shout out to thank them.
And if I can comment on the gardeners, I just want to make sure everybody's clear that you're allowed to garden your own yard. As long as you're wearing the face mask or the face covering, you can do your own gardening all you want. It's the hiring of other people to come in, which is against the order. Just so everybody's aware.
Well, that's a good question. If I can follow up on that, if I'm in my own garden, do I still have to have a face mask?
Well, if you read the order, that's not exempt. So technically, you're in public and you should have a face covering. Now, what is exempt, which is interesting, is if you're exercising, bicycling, jogging, running, you're not required to have one, although it is recommended, and you should carry one with you. So there are some, like I said, there are some interesting niceties in this order that I would encourage everybody to go read. It's available on our website and the county website.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Nash?
Thank you. So if you're in your front yard, you need a face mask on. If you're in your backyard, you don't, do you? Or in your
No, you
house?
do.
Okay, thank you so much. Got it. Thanks.
Right. And if there are no other questions for me,
Councilmember Mueller.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me. I'm just checking with Councilmember Mueller to see if he had any questions. No.
No, I don't have any questions. I would say that, so the one thing I do get concerned about is I'm hearing increased frequency of people confronting each other. And I think it's really important that we provide that line. And I know it's a pain well, not necessarily a pain, but I know it can be difficult to have to be responding to some of the calls when it may not be necessarily the most immediate or urgent public safety issue. But I think it's important that we actually get that call number out to people so that they're not themselves taking it upon themselves to be policing each other. And the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was Judy Morley had called in. Kat, I know you've raised this before about trying to do something as a city that is unifying, that takes place. And I know like people are doing teddy bears and things like that. But one thing that every neighborhood could do that builds camaraderie around the neighborhood, because right now I am concerned that as this goes on, people are getting used to actually policing each other, and that we need to be doing something where we're building community around that at the same time. So those are my only comments. Chief, you guys are doing a great job. I know this is a really difficult situation for you guys to be in right now, and I've appreciated your efforts in that regard. So thank you.
Right, and to your first point, I just want to make sure everybody's aware that we by no means are telling people to confront other people. If there is a violation, you can either call the non-emergency line, or you can report it online. The portal will accept a violation of the new order also. So yes, feel free. We do not want people confronting each other for this.
Thank you, Chief Bertini. I think both Councilmember Carlton and Nash had a follow-up.
Go ahead, Betsy.
Councilmember Carlton.
Well, I was just going to say on the community, I keep hearing about blue ribbons and people ordering blue ribbons off of Amazon and putting them on their front door or on a tree outside or something. And the blue ribbons are supposed to be thanks to the medical staff and the police and the first responders and all the people. And I think that's nice. People can order them individually. They might have them at home. They can paint something blue or put something blue out. And that's a nice thing that isn't noisy, because I've also heard of conflicts about people singing and beating on pans that annoy other people. And it might be something that's pretty and easy for people to order or do or whatever to be able to show some solidarity.
Councilmember Nash.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think that it would be helpful if it's possible to get more patrol cars just sort of cruising the neighborhoods, because the presence of having the police cars out there, I think, will actually help with the compliance and also help with people who think that they need to take on some of these issues themselves. And just having a police car in the, drive by, I think will help some of that. And also, I actually am hearing regularly, several times a day, about concerns about people speeding. And so that, again, that might just help some of the, just the visibility of the police around, I think would be beneficial as is possible.
And I can guarantee you, Councilmember Nash, that that's what my officers are doing. As I saw for 6 hours today, I ran into more police cars than other people as I drove around the neighborhoods, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're not at the police station, not at the substation. We're actually making sure they're not together, because we have to practice social distancing too. So they're out on the street, and they're very visible, doing a lot of checks of essential businesses, neighborhoods, and just kind of being present.
That's wonderful. I actually am not out and about, so that much. So I don't see that. So it's really good to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Bertini, for the update.
Great. And if I could, I'll turn it over to my very able-bodied PIO, Nicole Acker.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor and council members. My name is Nicole Acker. I'm a management analyst in the police department, and I'm part of the city's emergency operations center in the public information role, helping out Clay Curtin and Lisa Atwood. So our focused efforts have been on a comprehensive communication strategy to the businesses and residents in Menlo Park, and as well as the public at large. And for the last few weeks, I know you've heard a lot of our updates on how we've been trying to get the information out to the community. So we've leveraged several of our digital platforms to disseminate the information, and it's been utilizing mainly our website, using our Civic Plus platform, which is a Civic Send. It's an email that we can send out to residents, and also utilizing our Notify Me platform so that subscribers to the different notifications can get information immediately, which is like our press releases. And so, of course, highlighting the face covering recommendation, or actually requirement, that went out on Friday. We actually made sure that we were able to push that information out through our website, and then also utilizing our weekly COVID recap. If you all see that, we sent that out yesterday, so that was good timing because we were able to get out the face covering requirement information, as well as highlighting other informational topics. And so some of those topics include what Council Member Carlton had mentioned about domestic violence, so pushing that information out, and also the resources on who they can call, the websites they can notify, and texting 911 if they need to. And then also we're utilizing our social media platforms, which are Nextdoor, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a host of others. And in addition, we have our emergency notification methods. And as Clay mentioned, last week we utilized 2 weeks ago our reverse 911 platform, which is able to notify over 40,000 landline phones of information pointing to our website to get information, and also county's 211 number. And also we have a city line where people can leave text and voicemails, and we return calls back to answer their questions. And for a lot of you who are signed up with our SMC alert notifications, I'm sure you got the blast through text and email this morning about the face covering requirements. So San Mateo County sent those out to probably thousands and thousands of residents. And also I do want to highlight that almost all of our information that we're sending out is translated in Spanish as well. And last week, Thursday, we used the phone platform for the mayor and the city manager's tele-town hall. And it lasted for an hour from 6:30 to 7:30, where we dialed out to 9,600 residents, and 1,900 actually answered the call, and 143 other callers called in to get information, where we were able to field 19 calls. So the city manager and the mayor were able to answer these callers' questions, and it was set up like a platform as we have with the city council, where they took at least 3 minutes to ask their question and got a response. And for those who were not able to get their question, they were able to send in their questions via voicemail, in which we returned their calls to answer their questions. And that phone session was recorded, and it is found on our SoundCloud page, and that's on our social media page. So if anybody wants to listen to it, they can. And after that, 50 additional listeners did actually listen to that tele-town hall. So that was successful. And yesterday, over 20,000 mailers were sent out to Menlo Park residents for the COVID-19 resource guide. And that lists a lot of financial, educational, and some other important information, contact numbers, and websites that they can utilize. And this week, we also have going out to over 4,000 Menlo Park businesses a COVID-19 resource guide as well. And it's going to highlight some of the grant and loan programs that are available. And both of those are translated in Spanish as well. And we've also created several of our signs to fit our A-frame signage to alert the public on our facility closures, social distancing. And one of the things we just sent to the printer they're going to be ready tomorrow are the requirements for the face coverings. And so we're going to be deploying those out to like grocery stores. So they're in front. So hopefully we can help stores mitigate, you know, people coming in the stores without the face mask and having those kind of inconveniences. So we're going to put them at like grocery stores, the post office and pharmacies and some other places that we've identified where the public has access to. And in closing, we've tried to use as many communication tools as we could for, you know, using email, digital, telephone, signage, of course, snail mail, because some of the things we wanted to get into the mailers, like the face covering requirements, didn't make it in there, but we're hoping to push that out on a lot of our platforms. And we want to push people, the public, back to our city website, because that's the focal point where you can get a lot of information, a lot of resources, and actually it sends you back also to the San Mateo County Health Officials webpage, where you can get a lot of timely information from the officials who have all that information for them. And then I do want to say that we do have a coordinated effort with our EOC team from our command level, operations, logistics, finance. There's a lot of moving pieces and parts and information going on. But I do want to thank you for your time, and if you have any questions,
Thank you, Ms. Acker. I appreciate all the information. I have one question, and that is, what is the city line number?
The city line number is area code 650-456-1331.
Thank you. And one piece that this is the second time I've forgotten to do this, is ask if we have any public comment. And Ms. Acker, if you can stay on the line, just in case the public comment is a question that you have information on.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Herron?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. At this time, I have received one public comment via web form. So as I display and read that public comment, I ask any other members of the public who wish to speak on this item, which is item E4, update the City Council and public on COVID-19 health emergency and the city's response, to use the green hand feature next to your name. If you click that, I can open your mic and you can have your 3 minutes of public comment. So at this time, I'm going to display the written public comment, and I will be reading it out loud for the record. All right, so it does look like it is on the screen, and this is coming to us from Menlo Park residents, Ashley Barraza, Mia Palacios, Natalie Manzanario, Yvette Contreras, and forgive me if I've mispronounced any of your names. Dear City Council members, the world is going through perilous times right now. Our community was one of the first ones to act on the dangers of COVID-19 by implementing social distancing guidelines and setting up a fund for families in San Mateo County. Yet we are still worried about housing in our communities. One of our concerns is with homelessness. What is being done for homeless people right now when they need to shelter in place safely? Counties in Southern California are opening up their community centers to help with some of their homeless people. Could that be a temporary solution for the community? Could do as well. There have been predictions of about 100,000 to 200,000 people dying from this virus. Having measures like this can help us prevent some of those deaths. When this crisis is over, what permanent measures will be put in place so we make sure homeless people are safe in the event like this ever happens again? We are nearing a time where it will not just be diseases that will rock our sense of safety, but we are seeing the effects of climate change more and more clearly. Homeless people will be the most affected if they do not have a safe place to call home. Many families are being laid off, but still need to be paid. Mouths still need to be fed. Our communities need the people in power to help them now more than ever. Trump signed a $2 trillion bill to help relieve family families financially, but none of that money is being given to undocumented families. These undocumented families who pay taxes just like everyone else won't get the same support and will continue to struggle. These families work just as hard as everyone else, but can't sign up for the benefits as everyone else. Even though there is the ability to support undocumented families by the amount of children they have under the age of 16, this is still excluding families supporting children over the age of 16. In addition, the money given to families is not enough to continue to live in San Mateo County. Also, many government relief programs require you to have done taxes, but since the pandemic, many people have not had the ability to complete their taxes. Therefore, they are not eligible for those programs, thus excluding a lot of low-income people that from the law that was supposed to help. In addition, what will relief for families who have had someone laid off look like, especially for undocumented families that will not be eligible to receive the stimulus check from the IRS? We are experiencing a surge of people who are unemployed, and its effects have reached all of us. Some of the protections that are being put in place are generous, but will they be able to cover families who need it long term? We do not know how long the crisis is going to last. We may be lucky and be able to go back to work on May 3rd, but as we have seen in other countries, it has lasted longer than 2 months. We need our people to have access to long-term, month-by-month relief that does not discriminate on legal status. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it is that our governments have the ability to do what is right for the most vulnerable. We have passed laws that give economic relief for low-income families, have stopped evictions, and made sure people have a stable place to live. We believe it is possible for our community to become a more compassionate, equitable community. At this time, I'm going to check our attendees to see if anyone has raised their hand for this item. Seeing none, Mayor Taylor, I return the meeting to you.
Thank you, Ms. Herron. I appreciate you reading the public comment. Ms. Acker, I just have a follow-up question about the resource guide. Is there any information about what's available for undocumented community members?
We don't have that in the resource guide, but I am going to ask Clay Curtin if we are able to reference the county site. Did come across some of that information on the county's website, so that's something we can link to from our website.
Okay, thank you. And then also, I believe that there was another comment that was in the letter that was read. Ms. Herron, do we have their contact info? The community members that sent that email in, I'm assuming they emailed it.
Yes, I do believe I might have an email address for one of the members.
Okay.
And I can confirm that and get back to you and let you know.
Okay. I'd appreciate it. It makes me think of a couple things. One is there are resources available for undocumented workers, just accessing that information. The second is the money that we allocated for COVID with Samaritan House. I know that it was some money. I know that money was expected to be exhausted by the end of the month. So I just wanted to find out if there's a status of how many people have actually accessed it. I believe there was an update at our last meeting that I believe 13 people. So I wasn't sure if anybody had any information. If you don't this evening, that's okay. But just thinking ahead. And I also want to check in with the council to see if anybody else had any follow-up questions or concerns based on that public comment or anything else that you've heard during the COVID update. Councilmember Carlton.
I've had a lot of people concerned about housing in terms of our freeze on people's ability to build housing. Not only in that when the housing that's being built now becomes available for people, that helps on one hand. On the other hand, people who are understandably freaking out because they're paying many thousands of dollars to rent one place while their house is being redone. And I just wanted clarification on this, that the ban on the building and gardening and a lot of the things that we deal with is on a county basis. And is this one of the situations where we can make it stricter but not weaker than what is passed on the county? Thank you, Kara.
So, Madam Mayor, Cara Silver, Interim City Attorney, would you like me to respond to that question?
Yes, please.
Yes, so the county did put a construction ban in place that applies to all construction except for construction that has a 10% deed restricted affordable component and homeless shelters. And the city of Menlo Park does have the ability to make that ban stricter, but it may not loosen that standard. The county standard is in effect until May 3rd. There is some suggestion that the county may revisit that standard, and at that time, the council may also choose to adopt its own standard, as long as it is it meets the standard that is in place at the county level.
Thank you, Ms. Silver. Councilmember Carlton, did you have a follow-up question?
I see Ray has his hand up, so it seems that he wants to address the question.
Councilmember Mueller?
Sorry, finding that button's hard I'm not used to this laptop. I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk with you guys about this. So when we took action, which I thought was appropriate at the time because of PPE levels, to go a step further than the county, we heard from folks saying it's going to take time to get our construction teams back. And I think it's appropriate that if the county and the state are both loosening up after the 3rd, if all those public health officers get together and loosen up after the 3rd, I think I personally would like to signal now to people that if they do loosen up the reins on construction, that we would be not going further than them, that we would be following that direction, so that people know they should try to start getting ready now for that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with this. Thank you for that, Ray. Our minds are kind of on the same road.
Yeah, we want to let people know to get their teams together and get ready. Should it's going to be harder for people doing personal residential work to get their teams back than it will be for other types of construction. So for the council to say, hey, if they do this, personal residential projects would be going forward if the county lets them go forward, or if the state lets them go forward at that time. So I'm comfortable with that, with letting people know that we would be rolling with the default provisions coming out. But I did want to touch base with you all and see how you felt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in support. That's why I was bringing it up.
My screen was frozen for a moment, so the pause, I thought you weren't talking anymore, Councilmember Mueller. Councilmember Nash, did you still have a question or a comment? Yeah. No. Vice Mayor Combs?
I'll let Councilmember Nash go.
Sure thing. I just wanted to mention that there's a very good website or group that provides a list of relief funds for undocumented workers in California, and it's called legalaid@work.org. And so if people have access to computer and internet, they can go onto the site, and it's they have various tabs that you can get to the relief funds for undocumented workers.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash, for that information. Vice Mayor Combs, did you still have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I was just going to add that with regards to the construction question or issue, I generally would be supportive of following the county's direction on that. So I just generally expressing my support. I would sort of, again, want to know a little bit more of the details, but overall, I'd be supportive of us following the county's direction.
Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not looking for a vote tonight because we don't have, but to signal it to people that it could be coming so people can start to get their ducks in a row, I think is fair.
I'll have to go back and listen to the recording. I didn't hear Vice Mayor Combs's comment, but all I heard was support, and then Councilmember Mueller. So, Councilmember Carlton.
Sorry, we lost you for the last like 3 seconds.
That was what I was explaining, is that I didn't hear anything that was said. But I will go back and listen to the tape, and that way I can listen to Vice Mayor Combs and Councilmember Mueller's comment.
Yeah, I was really insightful. I'll just say that.
Okay.
So,
I'm looking forward to it.
I have so much passion for people that are in the situation where they need to finish their house and they're renting and all this. We need more housing. I'd like to see us move forward on this. And to Councilmember Mueller's point, I would like to be able to signal to people to get ready, with the degree of we never know what's going to happen. It might be extended. But also as a city, we need to make sure that we have people lined up, because when it opens up again, we then might have others who are going to be putting in their permits that they've been sitting on, getting ready to finish whatever house projects they were going to do. So I was just going to bring it to our attention that I would like to see us be able to move forward on that when it's appropriate and when we're able to do so. Particularly with the people that are putting in secondary dwellings and all the wonderful things that we've been trying so hard to support.
Right. And those projects that are actually 90% complete, they just have a few other items to add, and they have a home. So, Ms. Silver, you have a follow-up? Ms. Starla Jerome, you do not. Okay, that's okay. Ms. Starla Jerome Robinson, I have a question about this item. How soon can we put it on the agenda if we are planning ahead?
That's a great question. We have a council meeting next week on the 28th. We don't have any prep time to do that, so we could maybe target the 12th. Can you not hear me?
Councilmember Mueller?
My memory of the prior action of the council was it acted it acted under the discretion of the emergency officer, Ms. Jerome Robinson, to create the order. So I think that it would just require a check-in on the 3rd when the new order came out with the emergency officer, and then because it's always been issued under, it wasn't, my memory is it was just issued under her order and authority, and that it wasn't, if I remember correctly, procedurally how it went about last time.
That's correct.
So a check-in so that being the case, there is no ordinance or nothing to roll back. It would be the discretion of the officer of the city upon direction of the council.
So noted.
Councilmember Carlton?
Sure. So on the basis of making sure that we're clear, I feel comfortable giving direction that when it's legally available from the county, I'm happy to support people working on their homes.
So I think everyone's kind of showing to be in agreement. I think the gritty details will be what the precautions are that will be necessary in place from the city in order to do that. Right. So I think it'll be just a question of seeing the emergency officer exercising her authority to put in what PPE and things are required on sites. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone is pretty much indicated that. So I think we probably sit down on well, Betsy's not sure yet, but I think what it requires is a check-in on. I think we just basically signal tonight that that's where the council appears to be headed, and then we would be able to, through the mayor, if you're so inclined, schedule a check-in with Mr. Robinson on the 3rd when the new order comes out.
Yes, I do support it. Councilmember Nash.
I just want to make sure that we don't get out ahead of ourselves and that people realize that we are waiting until we hear from the county and that nothing is happening until then. And just we are all in this together and everyone is relying on everyone adhering to these shelter in place measures in order to, and also in wearing masks in order to be able to get to the next step where we actually can loosen some of the county will loosen up some of the requirements. So the more people can will wear the masks and get used to this as part of a new way of life and I believe that that's what will allow us to get more back to normal, is if we are observing the social distancing, wearing the mask, and doing things that will keep the virus at bay and not get us into a second round.
Ms. Darla Jerome Robinson.
Well, so I just wanted to say, I think the council's intent is very clear here. Sometimes the orders come out quite rapidly, and so we'll evaluate the timing, but I understand the council wants to get people back to construction as quickly as possible.
I'll just add as quickly as safe.
As quickly as safe. That's the new hashtag for Menlo Park.
All right, so noted, as quickly as safe.
And we do have 2 more items on the agenda. However, because of my poor connectivity here, I am going to ask that we move those items to the next agenda. It's primarily informational and council member report outs, unless there was something a council member wanted to share. Councilmember Carlton.
Sure. Rather than moving them to the next, can we just see if being information items, if nobody has any questions, we can just take them as we have the information and move forward?
I actually have questions.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Then let's table them for the next meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Herron.
My only request before adjourning is the report from closed session, since we did have a closed session before this meeting, if any. Other than that, I can continue the info items and put them on our next agenda.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Darla Jerome Robinson, or would you like to report out from closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. There's nothing to report out from closed session.
Thank you. And in light of that, stay safe and thank you. And this meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.